Hello, fellow homebrewers. JP here, and I want to introduce to you the brand new Brew Built X1 Conical Series available at More Beer. More Beer sells the highest standard in homebrewing equipment, and the Brew Built Conicals are just that. They're made from mirror-polished 304 stainless steel, and they come with loads of features that you and I have been looking for. They have a full 2-inch bottom dump valve, which will eliminate your clogging issues, while the sturdy base includes 4 reinforced legs, just like those big Pro tanks do. More Beer also carries the Brew Built line of options and add-ons like casters, pressure kits, and even external glycol chillers. So you can find out more about the new Brew Built X1 Conical Unitanks by going over to morebeer.com for detailed videos on the entire line of Brew Built Conicals. You can trust Brew Built with your next fermentation, and you can trust More Beer to find the right conical for you. Brew Built at morebeer.com.
Home brewers, craft brewers, beer lovers, beer drinkers.
Get ready for an all-new experience in information exchange and beer culture.
Your only source for live beer radio that brings expert brewers from around the globe
right to your home.
You're not just listening to broadcasters, it's the Brewcasters
on the Brewing Network.
Wow, Doc's so excited about today's show that he didn't even bother to show up.
Yeah, he's staying home.
He's like, wow, Jamil's coming and I'm not. I think is what happened.
I'll listen from home. Yeah.
I mean, at least he usually, even though he's late, he slides right in under the gun.
Or he calls.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
I hope he's all right.
He's MIA.
Didn't he go to a big brew today?
He did.
So he could be passed out in the back of his Hummer.
Quite possible.
Good thing about that vehicle is that about 8 people could pass out in the back of the Hummer, so
that's true.
That's a good thing. Today's show is the official 3rd episode of the Jamil Zainasheff show. How about that?
I like how you said that. Great trilogy.
Yeah, Jamil, episode 3. Welcome back, Jamil.
Thanks for having me.
How's everybody feeling today?
Great.
Good?
Yeah.
All right. Sorry about the late start at home there, folks. We were giving Doc just a little chance to get in the studio, and then
we had to tap a keg of beer.
And we were also tapping a keg of Jamil's beer, so that's going to be good. What a show we've got planned. We got to get moving because we're going to be here for hours today, I fear. You East Coasters, I apologize, are going to certainly end up listening to the archive for the second half of the show because we got so many questions just in the forum and sent to me via email, and John's got a good list of questions, and Doc's got some segments if he ever shows up, and I just don't know how we're ever going to get through it all, Jamil. It's a marathon show for you today, buddy.
I'm up for it. I'm ready.
Okay. I'll brew some tea for your throat later in case you end up answering so many questions that you get sore or something. We'll be all right then. Okay. So we ought to just get right to it. Don't forget that at 6 o'clock we've got our tasting. It's Heineken today, so get those suckers chilling. And hopefully you went out and you got yourself a bottle and a can because we're going to do both. And I think that it's going to be a big difference between the two. Sure. So that's what we wanted to do. So get your Heineken ready for that. We've also got some listener tastings coming up this hour. John, did you bring your listener tastings?
I did.
You did? Yeah. Okay. So John's got a couple. I had some sent to me. I'll talk about that in a little bit. We got those going. And then also, I think just after the Heineken tasting at the 6 o'clock hour, we're going to make our big announcement. So don't forget about that. We got the big announcement today.
I can't wait.
Yeah, it's exciting. I'm excited, and we're not revealing it until then. Right after the Heineken tasting, we're going to give you the big news, all right? Yes. So everybody just stick around and hang in there. It's going to be well worth it. You're going to be happy, as are we. Okay?
Oh, my God!
You've got mail.
Kick ass.
Let us do some of the mail service. I know the chat room was a little slow today, too, folks, so I just wanted to let you know that, give it time. Right at 5 o'clock, we get so much traffic there that it's a little slow. If you can't get in at 5, you'll get in eventually. So there you go. Good stuff in the news today. I just weeded out a couple of stories, and one of them I thought would be particularly interesting to Jamil, and the others are just my good old regular crazy news stories. All right? Did you guys know that you can use yeast and then even just some sort of like spilt beer to produce ethanol. Like fuel-grade ethanol, I mean. And there are actually plants in this country that do that. And in fact, Coors is affiliated with one that just opened in Colorado, and I believe it's the second one. Coors and Aurora-based engineering company Merrick hosted a ribbon cutting Friday to mark the expansion of their ethanol production facilities in Golden, Colorado. It's a $2.5 million fuel-grade ethanol plant officially tapped on Friday, and it relies on Coors beer as a key ingredient. And the ethanol ultimately will go into front-range drivers' gas tanks. So basically, where does the beer fit in? The two plants process yeast condensate, a waste byproduct of the brewing process. Merrick buys the condensate from Coors, which pipes it over to the ethanol plants. It's a very high alcohol condensate stream. We strip the ethanol from it and make fuel-grade ethanol, says Merrick Vice President Steve Wagner. What was a waste stream is now a good revenue stream. And the plant also uses a relatively small amount of beer that's been spilled during the packaging process. Most fuel-grade ethanol produced in the United States comes from corn, but this is a program that allows it to come from brewing byproducts. Hi, Doc.
Hi, Doc.
Welcome to the studio and the show.
Hey.
Good to have you. We were worried. I thought maybe you got in a wreck.
I had some issues before I left. The neighbors were over. We were trying a few beers. And then my oldest son was opening I have a Snapple refrigerator in the garage. The whole door came off.
Oops.
It's a double pane glass. Think glass everywhere.
Your son's all right?
Oh, yeah. Everybody's okay, but man, what a mess.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm looking at this shards of glass everywhere. I'm like, well,
That's
I could
rough.
just leave it. So I had to kind of sweep and clean.
Wow.
Fair enough, no problem. So anyway, did any of you guys know that you could make ethanol from spent yeast and different beer products? Doc, you must have known something about that.
Well, I think isn't what they're doing is they're squeezing out the last of the
They had
beer
to.
out of the
Exactly.
Because you're not going to get the
That's
ethanol
exactly
out of
what's
the
happening.
yeast. It's out of what's left in the grains.
It says the yeast condensate. There's a yeast condensate that comes out, and it's a waste byproduct of the brewing process, and that Merrick buys that condensate from Coors, and then squeezes out the last of the ethanol from it.
That's got to be a lot of yeast.
Yeah, coming out of Coors, absolutely.
and they make Vegemite.
And then they make Vegemite out of it.
Squeezing.
Absolutely.
Hence the banjo music.
I just thought it was interesting because it's just another good, all of the byproducts of brewing are reusable in one way or another, and I like that. And this form is even better because a nice clean burning fuel and don't have to take it from other fossil fuels. So
I
like
actually
that.
thought about seeing if the goats would chew on my spent grain.
Why wouldn't they?
I don't know. I haven't tried it yet.
You gotta try that. Of course they would.
Spent grain's good for getting rid of rodents.
Is that
They
right?
can't metabolize it, and then it'll kill them.
So do they like explode when they eat it?
Yeah, like rats and mice will just
I
die.
was wondering about
Man,
that
that's
because
great.
I dump mine
Yeah.
kind of off the side of the house into the ditch over there, and it's grain. It's gonna go, and I've seen some rodents running around in there. I was wondering whether I was feeding them or killing them.
Yeah, you're killing them.
That's great. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Jamil, what am I drinking here? Your beer.
This is an American brown that was hopped with Amarillo. That I was experimenting with US 56 dry yeast,
Yeah.
and I made it a month or two ago, and this is just what's left over, and
Gotcha.
I had nothing else to bring, and
It's damn good. I like it.
it's
I like it.
It got a little shook up on the trip over.
Got all shook up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was brilliantly clear. It doesn't look like that anymore.
My pale ale that's in the carboy over there, not quite ready, has got the Amarillo that you gave me in there, so I'm
Right.
hoping that comes out nice too. This is good. I like this beer. All right, let's finish up my news here. Evolution debate hits the beer aisle. You guys remember the beer label controversy happening in Connecticut not too long ago that I summed up last week? Well, this is another one. Controversy over teaching evolution in public schools has been bottled up in a most unlikely place, the beer aisle. Wasatch Beers is changed the label on its 2002 unofficial amber ale. A title that once raised a ruckus with Olympic officials is now Evolution Amber Ale. And the company says the change is inspired by Utah legislators and the debate here and nationally over whether public schools' evolution lessons should be balanced with intelligent design, or the idea that life is too complex to be explained by Darwin's theory of evolution alone. Wasatch Beer's founder Greg Scherf called a counterculture brewmaster in a company press release said the new label was intended to be lighthearted. I guess some people are going to chuckle out of it. I don't see anything funny about it, Butter said, but anytime someone tries to sarcastically exploit issues of morality in those kinds of ways is very unappealing. But it doesn't bother me, whatever they put on there. Basically, the label that's now Evolution Amber Ale features, they show the whole process of evolution. There's the monkey, and then the bigger monkey, and the bigger monkey, and then there's finally a guy carrying a 6-pack of Evolution Amber and taking a drink of it. It's great. It's a brilliant label. You can probably just do a Google for it, either for Wasatch Beers or Evolution Amber Ale. I'm sure you'll find the logo there at home, but it looks great. But now they're arguing over it there in Utah on whether or not it's an appropriate label to have on a beer. And they're basically saying, hey, we're going to keep it anyway, which I think is a good idea.
Yeah.
I mean, who cares?
What are the size of the guy is?
He ends up saying, what were the size of the
Evolution guy.
Yeah, pretty big.
Yeah.
The guy says, really, our intention was not to make anyone mad. Our intention was to sell some beer with a funny beer label. We don't have any issue with what people want to believe. We just believe religion should be held in religion classes and science should be held in public school classes. Again, I like when beer people get involved with like the politics of the moment and especially when you're dealing with craft brew, right? Because it's a very local thing. These are breweries that are going on in those cities. And if a debate comes to a head in those cities, I like it when they take a little stab and do some funny stuff to kind of get in their point of view. I don't mind it. I know it's just beer.
What he just said, though, he says, I don't want to make any waves with this, and now he's going to make a funny beer label, but...
Yeah, but then he goes on to say...
This is this and this is that, and that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I
guess you're right. He kind of does both. Caller, you're on the air.
Good. Just here drinking a couple of homemade beers, having a good time. Joey Prosco here.
Oh, no, who are we talking to?
Joey Prosco.
Oh, hey, Joey. I think I got an email from you today.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, I email you all the time.
Nice. You sound like you've been drinking for a couple hours, Joey.
Oh, of course.
That boy.
Gotta get liquored up for the show.
Oh, yeah. For the show.
We're working on catching up to you.
Brewing.
You're home brewing right now?
Oh, of course.
What are you making?
Beer.
That's good.
Where are you calling from?
McKees Rocks.
New York?
PA.
Yeah, I detect a little bit of an accent there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got the strong A's.
Yeah, we got started about a month and a half ago, and things been brewing well since, of course, your help.
Oh, cool. Well, glad we could help.
Oh, no doubt. Everything's been flowing well. I mean, without you guys, things would have been not even foaming.
Oh, well, that's good. That's good to know we're helping out. Although, don't say that till you've actually tried the beer.
Yeah.
Oh, we have. I mean, we tried it tonight. It's like 8.5%.
Oh, it's working
beautiful.
then.
You can't get any better than that.
Yeah, I think you took too much of my advice and maybe not enough of Jamil and Doc's.
Actually, we're sending you 22 ounces right now.
Yeah, do it.
Beer in about a week.
I'll drink the whole thing right here on the microphone.
Oh, no doubt. It's coming your way, and when it happens, I want you guys to enjoy it, because if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be brewing.
Oh, that's good to know.
Right, thanks.
I appreciate that, Joe.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, I gotta get going. Is there anything else you need?
No, nothing special. All we want to do is thank you. We just want to thank you for home brewing, and
Absolutely. Hey,
we're gonna.
You're very welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna celebrate your.
Keep brewing, man.
Yeah.
Be brewing. Yeah, I mean, it's just no doubt.
All right, thanks a lot. I'm going to celebrate
Okay,
you
thank you. Have a
celebrating.
good night.
Thanks for the call.
Hey, you'll enjoy the beer in about 2 weeks.
All right, I'm looking forward to it.
No problem. Thank you so much.
See you, buddy.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
That's awesome.
That's fun.
Hard work pays off.
Let me tell you, if I wasn't the one doing the show and someone else was doing the show, I'd be doing the same thing, man. I'd be sitting home every Sunday just getting ripped and waiting for the show and then hanging out and calling in. That's what I do. I love that. That is cool. Hey, Miller Brewing Company is accusing Bud Light of changing its formula. Although I don't know that that's a crime or anything. But,
why would they care?
Well, it's part of their battle to gain some market share and also just boost beer sales in general.
In the macro world.
In the macro world. The latest fight in the U.S. beer battle is a matter of taste. Miller Brewing Company says rival Anheuser-Busch has altered Bud Light in the past year to make it more bitter and bubbly, rolling out the claim about Bud Light in national television ads that began airing Friday. The company said data it has collected show Bud Light's bitterness and carbonation rose from last year. Anheuser-Busch called Miller's claims another marketing ploy and complained to cable networks that the statements are false. Now, 10 of 32 cable networks contracted to run the commercials have put them on hold while awaiting substantiation of the claims. Then they list a bunch of the networks that aren't doing it.
I smell lawsuit.
Yeah. Miller says, all we're saying that they're doing is that they changed Bud Light, and that Miller Lite still has more taste, Marino said. Ooh. We need to be very diligent in protecting our taste claim. Anheuser-Busch said Monday it has not altered its winning formula, however. The company added, our brewmasters constantly make small adjustments to address seasonal changes in raw ingredients. Bud Light remains the highest-selling beer in the world, according to St. Louis-based Anheuser-Busch, which also controls nearly half the U.S. beer market.
Wow.
Yeah. And basically Miller just put out a bunch of negative advertising about how their beer is good without changing it, and Bud Light has felt the need to change their beer. So
they change it every year.
Yeah.
Just to make it the same.
That's true.
So.
I had another funny one, but I can't seem to find it.
Yeah, that wasn't something very funny.
There wasn't nothing funny about that. There's something about a guy was holding somebody up. He was robbing them, holding them hostage. And
That's funny.
And then he made them hold his gun and his beer. I was like, can you hold these for a second? And then the whole thing was over. That was it. That was the whole story. I don't even need to read it. I just remembered it.
That's awesome.
It was like 5 lines. It said, robber asked hostage to hold his beer and gun. Well, hostage got away. You know, that was it.
Happens all the
priorities,
time.
Yeah, that's fun.
You know, I just realized.
What?
I played the intro to the feedback segment.
Yeah.
And then I read the news instead of the feedback.
Well, do it again.
Yeah. Can I play the intro again?
Yeah.
It's all right with you guys?
Yeah.
The phone call threw me off.
It's all right.
Oh my God!
You got mail.
Yes. There we go. I mean, what's the point in having the thing if I don't use it in the right place, right?
Good song.
I'll go twice.
Yeah. Doc doesn't mind the extra banjo. All right, only a couple of emails this week. One of them you're going to like, Daniela. Here we go. Hi, Brewcasters. Great shows, as always. Really great the archives are coming up on Monday, or Tuesday for us Aussies. Makes keeping up much easier. I'm sure in traffic people wonder what bloody radio station I'm listening to with all these Yankee voices. I think you should include Daniela as one of your quote-unquote brewcasters, as her input to the show is valuable and should be signified.
Oh, thank you.
Cheers, Case Perth from Western Australia.
Thank you, Case. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, she's got her own microphone.
We did give her our own microphone, but he's right. In all of our promos where we announced the brewcasters, and even in the newsletter that I send out, which didn't get sent this week, by the way. It says the Brewcasters, John, Doc, and Dr. Scott. It doesn't say Daniela.
Throw her name in there.
So I'm going to have to change. I've been making some changes since I got this email. Don't worry.
That's so great of you. That's emancipation right here. Yeah. Really proud of you.
Good for you. Damn, that's good.
Well, we don't want the INS coming in here.
Dr. Scott, good to have you here.
That's why I don't like to announce you too much. I'm worried for your own safety, Daniela. Doc's right. You know.
I had the first one of the night.
Yeah. That's a big middle finger there.
And it won't be the last one, I'll bet.
Okay, and then the last email I've got here, a lot of praise. I won't read through all of it.
Oh, please.
But it was very nice. You can read it after the show, Doc.
Okay.
I'll just basically say that this person saw a posting on the AHA forum and has been listening ever since. I'm not sure if we'd be thanking Jamil for that.
Yeah,
or
we should.
Beer Pal.
That was the one.
That was that one.
It was Jamil.
All right. Good work, Jamil. It's working. And let's see. He's not been able to listen to a live broadcast, but burns all the archives on CD and listens to in the car. We have a lot of car listeners, which
majority probably.
I never expected that would be kind of the outcome of this thing, that we'd be drive time radio, which is like in FM land, in terrestrial radio land, That's the big gun
That's the
right
big
there.
daddy, yeah.
So we're actually competing against the big daddy of terrestrial radio.
Good.
With these people bringing us with them, turning off their FM and turning us on.
Bringing it strong.
I'm thinking I'm going to be sending some episodes to like Sirius or XM or something and see if those boys just want to pick us up on satellite, you know?
Do satellite? Yeah.
Might have to do some other production things for them. They like you to format things and proper breaks and all that, but could be cool, right?
You can do it. I believe in you.
We have our own proper breaks.
Yeah, that's right.
Beer break.
Beer break, body break.
We won't just be able to take a pee anytime we want anymore. Okay. And anyway, he's got some topic requests for us also in this email. Wants to know if we can get some from the business end discussing financing, management, and other issues. I realize this type of person can be boring, but if you pump them up with enough beer, it could be interesting. Maybe your first drunken show where the guest gets drunk, which is not a bad idea.
Not at all.
We'll all stay sober and get our guest drunk.
Yeah.
We absolutely can get some business guys in here. I've tried to run a few discussions in that direction with some of the guys who come in here who own breweries and get the business end out. I think what happens is we end up with so many brewing questions, it's hard to do both. But we could do a biz show for those of you who are interested in starting things up.
If they want to talk about it, sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
And some of the guys that we're going to have back a second time, like Vinny.
Right.
or Sean.
And you know, they've done that.
Yeah.
So maybe we can
talk about that.
They like talking about that and all the hard times they had starting out.
Mm-hmm.
They're still having hard times.
Also wants us to get in here maybe a barley roaster, a hop farmer, or an extract maker, which I think we can do. In fact, I know some of the guys from Hop Union. I'm thinking of giving them a call and seeing if next time they're down here we can get them in.
That'd be cool.
And then for the gadget show, he's got a tip for us. Now, this is going to be right up your alley here, Doc. That
cool.
show's going to be your baby right
all
there.
Right.
I have trouble weighing my hops, and like Justin, I hate to have any hops left over. People have been suggesting these electronic scales, and they can be pricey. I finally went to a head shop and purchased one similar to what I had in high school for weighing other stuff. For $3, it was a good purchase for weighing hops. And he makes a good point because those little electronic scales can be kind of expensive. So maybe if we can showcase some cheaper scales in here during that show, it would help some people out.
There's something. One other thing I used to use. I snagged my wife's was a Weight Watcher scale. The little electronic thing. It's not that much. $15 or something.
That's not bad.
Electronic.
Yeah.
And now I use my triple beam now. So learned how to use that in high school. I did.
Yeah, that's a good one right there. And
but the other one I used for quite a while, it's got a tear on it, so I put the little paper bowl or whatever I'm using to do the hops.
Yeah.
Punch tear, and then I can just dole them in there. Works out pretty good. But I always do end up running over with hops because you buy them in 2 ounces, 4 ounces, and I got a freezer full of hops that I got to use sometime.
You need to brew an IPA, Doc.
Yeah,
just throw them all in
Just
there.
going to have to do it.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to do it, or
I'll take it
a
off your
funky
hands.
Belgian with some old hops.
There you go. Do that. And then finally, he just kind of, that's all of his suggestions for show topics. But he does say throughout the email in several different places that us young punks do a good job and we make them laugh.
We're punks.
Keep up the good work.
Oh, yeah, we're the young punks.
Yeah. I like that.
We use it very, very loosely.
Yeah, you're right in the bunch, Doc. Don't you worry.
I'm young at heart.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah. All right. We got just enough time to take a short break and be right back. For the break, I want to announce here, this is going to be a special break. A listener sent me a song this morning for Daniela, thought that she would like it. And,
Really?
Yeah. And, I listened to it and I think he's right. It's,
Is it going to be an insult?
Oh no.
Oh no, of course
Our
not.
listeners send in insults. What do you think?
She'll be flipping somebody off.
So I hope you all enjoy it. Have your sense of humors ready.
Oh my god.
But it's a good one. It's a good one. And I'm just going to do the one song, and then we'll be right back. It's a short break because we got a lot to get to.
Well, then we can't listen to it and take a break.
You can listen and take a break. You'll be all right.
Can you turn the monitor on?
I'll turn the monitors on. We can all listen and have a good laugh. I mean, enjoy the song.
At somebody's expense.
And don't forget, get your Heinekens ready at the 6 o'clock hour. We're going to do our tasting. We're going to do some listener tasting when we come right back here. And then we got the big announcement right about 6:10, 6:15, right after we do the Heineken tasting. The big announcement.
El Grande.
All right, everybody feel good about that?
Good.
Daniela, this song's for you. I hope you enjoy it.
Oh boy.
It's the Brewcaster Sunday Live Show. We'll be right back.
You're either going to like this song or kick my ass after the show.
Love of my life, but it cuts like a knife, and I feel that I'm being misled. See, I'm a little concerned, for I recently learned of the swastika tattoo on your head. And it makes you smile when you hear Sieg Heil. You love the smell of a burning cross in the yard. You do goose-step salutes in your Doc Marten boots, and you quoted Mein Kampf in our 5th anniversary card. I think you're a Nazi, baby. Are you a Nazi? You might be a Nazi, baby. You keep extensive files on the Nuremberg trials, and you watch them whenever they're airing. I guess I should have known when you bought a new bone for your puppies named Goebbels and Goering. You showed up late to our very first date. I said, how are you? You said, white power. Call me paranoid, but I'm not overjoyed when you ask me if I want to shower. I think you're a Nazi. Don't be lying, baby. Are you a Nazi? Are you anti-Zion, maybe? Your every dress is monogrammed SS. You hold an Aryan picnic and bash. And it makes me irate when you say I look great when I wear a little tiny mustache. Your social politics say that races don't mix, and you call it pure blood pollution. And whenever I'm sad, you say it's not so bad. For every problem, there's a final solution. I think you're a Nazi. Give me an answer, baby. Are you a Nazi? You drive a fucking Panzer, baby. You say that love is blind, so how could I have guessed? But then again, I met you at the Wagner Fest. I know you're a Nazi, and that's why I'm leaving. I know you're a Nazi, sure as my name is Stephen Lynchbergstein.
You're listening to Three Guys.
Excuse me, what about me?
Sorry. You're listening to Three Guys and One Girl use a radio show as an excuse to drink more beer. The Brewcasters on the Brewing Network.
You like your song, Daniela?
Oh, it was very funny. It's great to be a German, isn't it? You're an easy target as a German. You know, people can make fun of you for just everything.
Man, I didn't even listen to the whole song. I got through like 3 lines and just laughing my ass off. I just said, I don't need to hear anymore. I'm playing it.
It was quite funny.
Very good, very good. All right, see, I even put you in the promos now. You're officially a brewcaster.
Thank you.
Right, you're welcome.
I got promoted after 7 months only. That's pretty good.
Yeah, you had to put in more time than anyone. Wow. Jamil showed up for 5 minutes, and we're like, sure, you could be a brewcaster. Daniela sweats over the keyboard every week.
That's
well, what can you do?
Yeah.
All right, what we got here is some listener beer. Now, this one was sent in by Paul. And Paul's from New York, I believe, and he sent us in 5 beers. Only 4 made it. 1 broke in the box afterward.
Oh, that sucks.
It does suck. 1 broke. The guy sent me 3. He sent me 3 CDs of music plus the 5 beers. The CDs were all doused in beer. I salvaged them though. I washed it all off. But I want to give another heads up about how these possibly sat out in the warmth for a bit too long. The way FedEx delivered me the package ultimately was they wrapped it in a plastic like garbage bag and left it on my doorstep. So I thought for like 5 days that it was my roommate's garbage that he was too lazy to take out to the garbage can. When finally I asked him, I was like, hey, dude, you gonna pick up your garbage off the porch or what? He's like, I don't have any garbage on the porch. So that's when I went and looked at the bag and realized it was a package sent in by Paul, and it was his beer that had been spilt all over. So, if there's any sort of, left out in the heat, bad tastes, it's not Paul's fault, it's mine.
It's all Justin.
But he would like you to know, he says, here's some homebrew and some music to me. Please remember that these batches are PJ, or what he likes to call pre-Jamil. But they are all great.
You're a legend, Joe.
So it's his pre-Jamil batches, what he has sent us, and then let's narrow down what didn't make it.
So does that mean he threw everything out the window now?
And he's started all over?
All over again.
I think so. He sent us a stout labeled S. Do we have a stout?
I have an SP.
But no S.
No S.
Okay, then that's the one that didn't make it.
Okay.
Because he also sent us a porter labeled P.
I got P.
A smoked porter, SP. A Belgian golden.
Ooh.
And a wit.
Okay.
All right, so all we're missing then is the stout. That's the one that didn't make it, huh?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's do the wit first.
Let's do it. Open those guys up and we'll give a tasting. As usual, we love it when these guys send in beer to us, all you listeners. Anybody can do it. We don't intend to rip them apart and make anybody feel bad, although we will tell you if there's problems so that you and everybody else can improve.
And
we've had some really good ones sent in, so don't think that everything that comes in here
we don't intentionally ruin them like Justin.
Like I do, yeah. They don't leave them out on the porch like I do. All right, so we got the wit poured here. We're going to take a little smell. You can send them in. The address is right on the website if you guys want to send us beer. So please do if you want to be evaluated. Go ahead, Doc.
Yeah. Well, the first thing I smell it's kind of grassy. Mm-hmm. I haven't tasted it yet, but that's what I get. It's inviting.
Yeah. Doesn't taste old like I thought that porch might have done to it.
Slightly peppery, citrusy, which is
what I was thinking.
Which is
that
fine for a wit.
It is a little peppery. That's the taste I was trying to figure out there, right on the back of my tongue.
I get like a soapiness.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, a little bit.
I get a hard bitterness, right?
Okay. So far we've got pepper, soapy, hard bitter.
Any cardamom or...
Yeah, it could be the spices. I don't know what he put in them. So the wits can run the gambit.
Yeah, with the spices. Paul, give us a call if you're out there. If you want to talk about your beer, we can figure out what the ingredients are. And go ahead, Doc.
I can taste the spices in there, especially.
It is a touch too bitter for a wit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that could come across from.
It does.
The coriander, I think. Maybe too much coriander in there. A
bit too much. Yeah.
That's
all.
I'm getting a lot of coriander. Maybe too much coming off of it.
It's the coriander that's kind of combined with that pepper taste.
Well, coriander is peppery and very citrusy too, so it kind of adds into the whole citrus kind of thing to it, and it is kind of bitter.
Yeah, coriander seeds are a completely different flavor than coriander leaves. So coriander seeds tend to be like pepper, like black pepper.
So I usually grind mine up in a coffee grinder. Use a coffee grinder for a lot of stuff.
But the spices are pretty good, and
it's not overpowering.
Yeah. I think overall the beer is pretty good. Just a touch too bitter, maybe.
I'd like to try it fresh, not porch aged.
Not porch aged. That's where I put all my beer to age it. Just right out on the porch. Got the question from the chat room here if we got a package from Brooklyn, and I'm pretty sure that's what we're tasting. I think that's where Paul's from. It's Brooklyn beer we're drinking. Would have been better aged on his porch. It's nice and cold out there than on mine. What do we got here on this one? Which one are we tasting?
This is the Belgian.
The Belgian, okay. Nice. Belgian Golden Ale, he says.
It's really dry.
You can smell the alcohol there.
There's a lot of alcohol.
Justin's learning. He knows what that smell is now.
Yeah.
Well, it looked like it fermented in the bottle.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of yeast on the top of the neck here.
Oh, yeah?
Yep, and it's very fizzy.
I wonder if he added yeast to...
Or he has something wild in it.
Or something wild in it.
Does it taste like something's wild in there?
Yeah, it could taste. It's when I feel it, it's like kind of sour and very dry. The first thing I think is infection.
I'm thinking sour fruit. Is what it kind
Well, you get that from the leftover from it being the Belgian Golden. But
this one, I don't think that's a yeast infection. I think the bottle was probably laying on its side or upside down.
Yeah,
and that's where that yeast comes from. Because when you get a wild yeast, it tends to form a crusty ring. And I don't see anything, like a crusty ring in there. And then this one I think is pretty good too. I think the alcohol is a little hot, and it's a little bit much. If it's young, I'd let it sit a couple of years.
It is hot. I'm thinking if I held a lighter to my mouth right now and did a burp, we could do one of those flames.
Let's try.
We should try that.
You want to give it a go? Yeah. I got too much facial hair. I think that could get ugly.
That'd be funny.
Yeah.
It'd make great pictures for their website, though.
That's true. And I'm down for the entertainment value.
Burning down the house.
Yeah, let's try another one, huh? What else we got here?
Pass me your cup here.
All right, so now we've gone through the Belgian Golden and the Wit. What do you open here? The smoked porter, maybe?
Porter first.
The porter, the regular porter.
So far, they're all drinkable.
Yeah, they are all drinkable so far. I'll tell you that, Paul.
But we're not here to,
telling you, it really just might have been my porch conditioning that did some of those weird things.
We're taking that into consideration, too. So
okay. All right, I think Paul's going to call us up, too. I'm being informed also. Hey, Jamil, you know anything about a pic that was posted about you being worshipped somewhere?
Yeah.
I didn't hear about that.
Me neither. Matt. This is a question from Gucci.
Matt. I do software, too, and I go to software conferences for the software that I develop.
Yeah.
And, some of those folks are They love the software, and that was at a conference in 2002 in Edinburgh. And so the only thing beer related in that was that I was hitting the pubs each night in Edinburgh, and just I added some feature that some guy really loved, and he wanted a picture or something like that. I don't know.
And they made a worshiping picture of you.
Yeah, somebody brings out a camera, you gotta look out.
Hey, who's our Photoshop gurus in there? One of them's definitely Crotch Rot. I would love to see like a little Jamil shrine that we could print out and hang up here in the studio. That'd be hilarious. Just for my own amusement, that is.
I think this might be mislabeled.
Caller, you're on the air.
Hey, Justin.
Is this Paul?
That's me.
Hiya, Paul. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm glad you guys finally got the beer.
We got it, and we're drinking it, man.
Good.
Sorry I left it on the porch for a week.
Well, it seems like it even took maybe 2 weeks to get to you guys.
Yeah, I think it took a while. Here's what I was impressed about. And you sent it FedEx, I think, right?
No, I went to the United States Postal Service and put in the automated where you open up. We have in Brooklyn. You can just open up and throw in the box and close it and not talk to anybody.
Oh, I like that. I don't like to talk to people outside of the radio.
Or stand on the huge line here in Williamsburg.
Right. Well, here's what I was impressed about. That it obviously broke in transit, and it was obviously a package of beer because it was a porter that broke, and it was sticky, and you could smell it. And they still shipped it. They didn't do the old, you're not allowed to ship across state lines kind of thing to us.
And it was shipped to the Brewing Network.
Yeah. A good point. Yeah, they still dropped it off, so I was happy about that. I mean, I would have been happier if they didn't break it.
It might have broken the truck on the way over.
Yeah, because he had it all, he wrapped it up in a bag and everything,
I sent it to a couple of
dropped things
Minneapolis
before.
and Atlanta, and I haven't had problems, so this is the first time. This is the farthest I've ever tried.
Okay. All right, I'm about to taste your porter here. These guys are already drinking it. Oh, this one's the smoked,
I think this was
isn't
the
it?
smoked porter.
Smoked. I was going to say
I'd like to hear what you think about the smoked porter.
Right, that's what we're tasting.
Where you thought we were drinking. I think you got the labels mixed up.
Yeah, you do.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. If it took 3 weeks for your beer to get here warm, you're brewing pretty clean because I don't really pick up a lot of contamination in all flavors, and I think you're doing a good job there because 3 weeks of sitting warm, being shaken up,
kill any beer.
A lot of beers would be from a lot of homebrewers would be sour and phenolic, and yours aren't. I think you got some adjustments to do on process and recipe maybe, but other than that, you already got the most important part down, which is like sanitation and yeast and so pretty darn good, pretty impressive to send out and sit on the porch
for
a
week.
week.
The hard part I had this time, we had a hot couple spells this summer, and I saw the wort was getting a lot over 80 degrees, and I was having a hard time.
Still,
with
it's
that's hot, huh?
That's probably on the Belgian was got hot, huh?
Yeah.
That wit is really high diactyl. I don't even like drinking that, so.
Okay.
I wanted to see if you guys could sense that in it, so.
Yeah, we got that out of it. So that's probably that high peppery coriander thing you guys thinking from the temperature of that fermentation also, or other stuff? No?
Could be. Depends on the yeast.
Yeah. What yeast did you use? A Belgian wit yeast?
I did a 10-gallon batch and mixed that up with a Hefeweizen that actually turned out really good. The Hefe turned out good, but that wit was just a little too much.
Yeah.
Now this porter...
Smoked
porter.
Rausch malt.
I like the body of it. I think it's right up there for a porter. I'm confusing the smokiness.
That's bacon.
With mustiness also.
Right.
You know what I'm saying there?
It kind of tastes like bacon.
You think so?
Well, what's a Rausch beers taste like to me? It's just bacon.
Well,
hickory
smoke.
18 pounds of like the 24 pounds, so.
How much did you smoke?
I smoked 18 pounds of the 24 pounds.
What did you smoke it with?
Dude,
I smoked it with the hickory and mesquite.
Okay.
It's the hickory that I'm getting.
That's your bacon taste right there.
Yep.
Yeah, hickory is bacon.
Is 18 pounds a heck of a lot of grain to have smoked?
I do about 3 pounds an hour, so it took me about 5 hours.
Well, how much did you use in the brew?
24 pounds.
Of the
so
smoke?
18 of 24 was smoked.
18 pounds of smoke, 3 pounds, like 6 degrees, some
but,
wheat, some chocolate.
Smoke is really tricky, though. You
Yeah.
know, it's very hard to get a consistent level of smoke in grains, and even the mass-produced,
it's not overly smoky by any means.
Yeah, it's still fairly restrained.
Yeah.
Pretty good job. I actually like the balance of smoke, the malt, and chocolate in
But
there.
it's that hickory that I can always taste.
Yeah. I'd prefer something other than hickory, but...
I've actually let that
But the
sit for
smoke
about 4
level's
months,
good.
because when I was first drinking, it actually smelled like when you throw up and you catch in your mouth and swallow it again.
Oh, yeah?
Love that.
That's called a verp. Like a vomit and a verp.
That's disgusting.
So it's much better in 4 months after than when I first tried it. So.
Porter's
Settles out a bit. The regular porter you're tasting now?
I like it. Yeah.
Is that this right in front of me here? All right, now we're tasting your regular porter here, Paul.
The regular porter, I tried doing a lot of just medium crystal malts instead of making it real dark. And this is the third time reused yeast of 1056, so, and just Northern Brewer and Cascade. So it's just a very simple, easy drinking porter.
Okay.
My friend calls it a pussy porter. He says you can drink it anytime.
It is real light like that.
Yeah.
It's a very light body.
Yeah.
Brown more than black, or is that the light in here again?
It's your eyes, man.
Yeah.
No, that's all right.
It's brown.
The
brown to me.
The color's cool, but you're right. It's just not as assertive as a porter probably should be.
Like a
should
very,
label it
very
pussy
hoppy
porter.
Very hoppy brown porter.
That's why I like it.
Yeah.
But, who says you got to brew to style? It's not, it's
No,
not a
it's-
bad beer.
It's good.
Brian Hunt doesn't say you have to, that's for sure.
He says you better not.
I'm just asking if you want to know who
So,
says.
so you get to name this. What kind of beer is this? He just called his a black beer. You call yours a brown beer?
They called it a pussy porter.
There you go. The
See, I
PP.
like that.
It's like an American brown ale. If I was categorize
Okay.
it. You don't have to brew to style, but I think people should take advantage of all the work that's been done by a lot of brilliant judges and brewers in that style guide and read it and try and understand what's gone before, just like an artist or a chef. To learn to be a great chef and to do a new style, you need to understand what's gone before.
Well, I think the styles are there for a reason, and a lot of it has to do with because these have floated to the top.
Yep.
Because it's all about balance and all about what flavors are going to be there. And the styles that didn't make it aren't there. Because maybe it wasn't balanced, or was it to this or to that. And you can always push the envelope.
Well, and new styles have been added to the style guide
Right.
this last, every few years. The style guides are more for judges, just guidelines. It's not for anybody to brew exactly what they're saying in there.
Right.
They're trying to adjust to what people are brewing. And that's the purpose of it, to give guidelines for judging.
They're not evil guidelines.
Yeah. So, and they're not, very...
Although it's more fun to
they're not
refer
very
to them
strict.
that way.
Yeah, they're not evil guidelines.
But understanding what's going on in the rest of the world in brewing, That's a pretty valuable thing, and really helps people become better brewers, understand the ingredients.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for sending us the beer, Paul. I
Great
think
job.
overall, it looks
none of
like,
it's bad.
Yeah, it looks like not a bad job.
Nope, none of it's bad.
Hold on.
So
6 months of all grain. I'm enjoying it. I'm going to keep learning.
So,
That's the best way.
Are you glad the day you went over to All Grain?
I'm just glad to have a backyard here in Brooklyn. It looks like I got to move soon, so I got to find a place. So I'm a little. It's difficult to find a place to move where it's dictated on your brewing needs.
Oh yeah.
No, it's called California.
Yeah.
Exactly. But, thanks again for having Jamil on, because I've just learned so much from him, and it's really motivated me and helped.
I know we had to drag him back in here.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. Hey, that's cool, man. We're glad you enjoy it.
Yeah, I was waiting at the door 2 hours early.
I hope you enjoy the music, because there's some good music.
I just barely salvaged it. It was covered in stout. I had to wash it all off. I played some of it on the Blues Show this morning already.
I was out watching football.
That's cool. I appreciate you sending it in.
You got it.
All right, Paul. Talk to you soon.
Thanks again.
Thanks, buddy. Nice. Listener beer.
Nice, I got more.
All right, so now we've got something from John. This one was handed to you, right? It didn't sit on anybody's porch.
Handed to me, cold storage, it was cold.
Okay.
It's from Andy Malcolm. It's a Scottish 80 shilling.
And is that this right here?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I guess got first place at Foam on the Range, I believe it was.
Okay. Let me have a taste here.
First or second? No, I can smell it.
It smells like candy.
It smells like sweet caramel.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like a
really strong candy smell, I think. I like it.
Yeah.
I'm not a sweet beer drinker, but there's nothing, I don't see what's wrong with it. It's just real sweet.
It's really sweet.
What kind of beer is this supposed to be?
I think there's a lot of crystal in it.
A lot of crystal.
Yeah.
I thought the initial aroma was a little off for an 80 shilling, but the flavor is much better. Pretty darn good. It's got a nice caramel malt balance, and for 80 shilling, it's not too sweet. And then there's a little bit of a minerally to it, but overall, pretty darn good.
Mm-hmm.
What did he win with this?
I know he plays in the. So
I'm super critical of all the Scottish stuff.
I was going to say, this is what he wants to look at. So.
But pretty darn good.
It's good beer.
Just real sweet.
There's
a particular. It's like a Christmas candy. It's this little hard candy. That's exactly what it smells like. I don't know what they're called or anything. I don't really eat candy, but it's a weird little Christmas
little
candy.
Taffy ones.
Yeah, like that. That's what it smells like. Little taffy
brown
things.
taffy.
Yeah.
Okay. Caller, you're on the air.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, who are we talking to?
Hey, this is Joe.
Hey, Joe.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Not much. Joe that we already talked to, or different Joe?
This might be the actual Joe instead of the imposter Joe.
The real Joe. Whoa. The real thing.
I had some company over, and they decided they wanted to call, so you know how it goes.
That's fair enough. Anything exciting going on? Just drinking and hanging out?
We're just drinking my first homebrew and stuff, so it's pretty cool.
Oh, your first one?
Yeah.
And how does that come out for you?
I don't know. I like it pretty much. They seem to like it. They've been taking over all the other beer I have on tap here, so it's pretty good.
Oh, that's good. That's always a plus. I hate it when you got people over and you offer them your homebrew and they tell you how much they like it, and then when they go back for another beer, they look in your fridge for something else.
They've been avoiding everything else. I have 3 other kinds of beer, and they've been picking mine. So.
That's a good thing. That's a good sign. I really don't like them. I'd rather you tell me, hey, that tastes like piss, thanks. And then they go grab another one. I don't mind that. Just don't tell me you like it. You know?
So we're talking about yeast here and stuff, too?
Yeah, we'll be talking yeast. You got a question already?
Not exactly.
Okay.
We're not to that part in the show yet.
Yeah, you're right though. We got so much about yeast, man. The whole second hour, aside from our tasting,
we're swimming
when we
it.
do the Heineken, is going to actually probably the second 2 hours is going to be all yeast stuff. So.
I don't know, Heineken, huh? I had it the other day and it tasted like bananas last time I tasted it.
Really? Well, that's one of the things we want to be picking out.
Or what?
We're doing it to be able to pick out things on the palate, so that would be good to know.
We're trying to get a beer that everybody can get
across
across the states or the world. Or
it's all for learning purposes, not because we're Heineken fans necessarily.
Yeah,
I understand.
This isn't high school anymore.
Yeah. Sometimes it is, though. Wow, things are ringing all over.
I got it.
Okay, thanks for the call, Joe.
No problem.
See you, buddy.
I'll talk to you guys later.
All right. All right, cool.
I love it when people call in.
People hanging out and drinking. That's good.
that's a good thing.
Quick question while we're drinking these beers here. A couple came in from the chat room. One is from a new listener. I just started brewing from extract, and no matter what I make, I notice a common taste. I taste it in all homebrew. What causes it, and will it go away if I move to all green?
What taste is he talking
We're going to know what the taste is.
You guys know that. I know what he's talking about. He's talking about that common homebrew taste.
That caramely sugary
taste.
Yeah.
That just you get in almost all homebrews. Although
it's more recipe process than it is the ingredients. You can make excellent homebrew with extract.
And, and most new extract brewers go off of other people's recipes. And there's ways around it.
Okay.
If you're going to stay an extract brewer. Some people are extract brewers for years and years, and there's ways around it. I've tasted some people that just have gotten around the issues of extract brewing that just killer beer.
Okay.
And I was amazed to find out that it was extract, but I know exactly what that taste is, too.
Yeah.
And
so is there any particular thing in the process you could point out that he might change that goes along? It's not a bad flavor. I don't. That's not
it's
what
a homebrew
he means.
flavor.
But it's that homebrew flavor.
I think one thing is most new homebrewers do that concentrated wort boil. They're doing a 3-gallon boil when they're making 5 gallons
Heavy
of beer.
caramelization.
And they'll boil the whole thing for 60 minutes.
Yep.
And it just caramelizes down, and you're going to get those.
Okay.
So, but if you're brew a porter.
Yeah.
It makes a great porter that way.
Okay.
But if you're brewing something lighter, you're going to have some issues, and you're going to get that kind of stuff coming through that you don't want.
And start with a high quality light extract like Alexander's Extra Pale that More Beer sells, or go with the Brees Golden Pilsner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Those are some of the lightest, highest fermentable, low caramel extracts out there, and they shouldn't cause a problem at all.
Get your color from steeping the grains. Don't necessarily go with a dark extract. They have dark extracts out there.
Don't use dark extract.
You don't need to do that. Use a light extract for most of your fermentables, and steep your grain.
Just the English light kind of extract, because there's
American.
There's
light.
an in between too. Should you not use the in between?
You should only use if you're going to steep grains, you should only use the lightest, most fermentable pale extract you can get.
It's good to know.
The other extracts for people who are going to do extract only.
Yeah, you're not going to be steeping grains. Yeah, because you won't get any color out of a real light one. But if you're going to steep grains, you're going to get a lot better flavor.
Okay.
And you're not going to get that caramelized flavor that you're going to get from the darker stuff.
All right.
So if at all times, just try to get the lightest extract you can. Use that as your basis.
Okay. And then if you can, do a full boil instead of a
full
partial.
boil really helps.
Full boil is, I agree.
That really helps. Spend the extra money. Get the big brew pot. You can have family members only over and do spaghetti. A couple times a year and make it worth your while.
Makes it worth it.
Yeah.
I'm not putting any of that stuff in my brew kettle.
But the other thing that
I'm just
really...
that's what you tell the wife
when
you buy the thing.
Yeah.
The other thing that really, in a lot of homebrewers, when they're starting out, it's fermentation problems.
Okay.
And so you're talking about something that didn't ferment completely.
Yeah.
And so it's that under-attenuated wort taste.
Okay.
That people associate with homebrew.
Okay. He did clarify he was talking about the sweet smell and taste, which is what we're referring to.
So
a lot of
good fermentation's important.
A lot of home brewers don't take an original and a final gravity either. They just, ferment it for 5 to 7 days and then they make beer out of it.
Why do you always have to talk about me like that, Doc? Why do you always have to point me out of the crowd?
I don't know. It's like, what was your finishing gravity? I don't know.
What does it look like? I don't know. All right, what are we drinking here, John? This is the second one of the listener?
This is Gary Foster's Porter.
Okay. Another one that's
it smells like a butter
brown
finger candy.
It does smell like a Butterfinger. A lot of sweetness going around in here today.
You're so sweet.
You are too, Doc.
Yeah.
I got his Pro Mash recipe here.
Although I like that. Doesn't taste quite as sweet. It has a little backbone there.
No, it does. It's
a little smoky backbone character that I think mellows out the sweetness when you taste it.
In there to balance it out.
Yeah. What do you think about that, Jamil? This beer.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you on all counts.
I think it could be a little thicker.
There is a little bit of buttery to it, but
diacetyl type of buttery.
Yeah.
Okay.
And a little bit of the caramel, but overall, when you combine it all together, that's pretty tasty.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I'd like
I
it.
could drink some.
I'd like it a little more body to it.
Yeah.
Not a lot, but it's a little on the thin side.
I would say if you didn't know the beer and you didn't know what diacetyl was,
Yeah.
I think it's a very
No, you
drinkable,
could easily
unique beer.
pass over that.
I would definitely drink this beer.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, and
But we're
I
trying to
don't
make
mind a touch of diacetyl in certain beers. It really rounds them out.
Me too.
But we're trying to make
nothing
this
wrong with it.
make the next one better for them, and it's a decent beer to start with. Don't change that part. It's pretty good.
You're just saying maybe a little more body there.
Yeah, maybe some carapils in there.
Yeah, he's going all grain, right?
He's going all grain.
This is all grain.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there carapils in there?
Increase your temp 2 degrees. I
Yeah.
stopped using carapils because
no carapils.
if you're doing all grain, just bump up your temperature 2 degrees.
Your mash up to mid 50s.
Whatever he's got. I like 154. I like to have some body to my beers.
Yeah, you're the 154 guy, so yeah.
Just to
I do
clarify,
160.
let me go back to the last question about the extract taste real quick. Now, we already said that doing a full boil will help. Using the lightest extract you can find will help, or doing a porter, like Doc mentioned. But aside from those things, the second part of his question was, would going to all grain solve the listener's problem with that sweet flavor?
Not necessarily. Again, if it's a fermentation problem where things aren't attenuating fully, then that's a problem you got to solve first.
It will make a difference. Will it make a really big difference? If you're ready to go to all grain, You will taste a difference, but there's issues along the way too.
You got to be good enough to make extract essentially better than Alexander's or Breeze can make extract.
Yeah,
that's the trick. When you go to all grain, that grain you're mashing, you're making extract.
Yeah.
And you got to make it better than those companies can do it and ship it to you.
And right. You can make extract beer a lot better.
You can make a really good extract beer.
There's late additions to the boil with your extract that'll help quite a bit. There's a lot of things.
Well, like you were saying, Scott, I would get a big boil kettle. I get maybe a wort chiller, a immersion chiller.
Mm-hmm.
Not too expensive, makes a huge difference. Those two things, and make sure maybe a flask and a stir plate, and make sure you're pitching lots of healthy yeast.
Lots of healthy yeast. Make sure the attenuation gets way down there.
Make sure you got a healthy process going, and those things right there, that you can make a great beer.
Well, I've tasted some killer extract beers, but for what he was saying, most of them I can tell it was an extract beer.
Yeah, but I've had extract beers that I couldn't tell.
I've had those too.
When you have really good ones.
I've been amazed.
And I think it's more just the level of brewer that
it might be. So there's no reason you have to go to extract or go to all grain from extract if you're doing killer. There's ways around making a killer extract beer.
But both you and I know all grain is fun.
It is. Yes, it is.
So
from the start when I started making my recipe all the way till I'm done counting the numbers at the end.
There's numbers?
There's
Gary, you're on the air.
Hey, thanks, guys. Do you like my porter?
I did.
That was a nice one right there.
It was good beer.
I drank it. I enjoyed it.
So
tell us about it.
What's the consensus? I need to crank the base mold up a little bit, or crank the mash temp up?
Well, Jamil thinks the mash temp, and don't do a lot of things all at once. Do one.
Oh no,
thing.
I change one thing at a time.
I'm up with Jamil on now. Just whatever your mash temp is, kind of get it up into the mid 150s.
Yeah, I mashed at 154, and it held pretty good.
Check your thermometer. Do a thermometer check on you. I got to calibrate mine every once in a while. I got complacent for a long time, and I just figured it's nice equipment. It's fine, and it wasn't. So check on that. You could be mashing it at 140, 49 for all you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I'll check that.
And do it. Check it.
I had the Doc had me do the same
thing.
thing.
I was
using
a beer gun for like the second time, and I wanted to make sure the carbonation
it was
level
good.
was right.
It was good, and the overall beer was creamy.
Yeah.
It was good.
All right, good. I actually cranked the carbonation level up just a little bit before I bottled it, so I might need to start doing that with the beer gun.
I like it that way. I thought it was good.
Like you said, it was creamy.
Yeah.
And pushing stouty creamy maybe, but it made it nice. It really did. It kind of.
If I was over at your house, I'd drink a pint, probably 2 or 3. Depends if I had to drive home or not.
Yeah, you don't want to know how many I drink, Gary. How many do you have?
Just send him.
I've only got about 2 gallons of that one left, and I just brewed it. So.
Well, we appreciate you sending it in. It's a good taster, good example of a nice porter, and only having to make some small changes there too. So that was cool.
All right, thanks guys.
Thanks for calling in.
I tell you, the
Thanks for sending it.
Listeners are, brewing some good beer and sending in some good beer.
I like that. We're getting more and more of it too. People are shy about sending their beer. That's why I try to make you. We've got 2 batches in one day.
I'm just wondering how much I actually see of it.
Yeah, I get them every week, guys.
That's what I figured.
No, I think that's why I like to mention, that we shouldn't be afraid to send it in here. We're not looking down on anybody or even tearing them apart. Just trying to help. If we're pointing out anything wrong, it's really only in the sense of you'll be making a better beer when you hear it.
Well, you'd hate it if we just said, "Yeah, it's a great beer." Next,
thanks. Then really, it would be just us collecting beer to drink.
Yeah, you wouldn't want that, or that's crap. And next, even if a good beer, there's always room to tweak it some, and that's why we keep doing it, because the next one's going to be even better.
A follow-up to the extract question again. I don't want you to answer it now. I'm just going to give you a heads up about it because we're going to be talking about this during the show. He just wants to know if the amount of yeast pitch would have something to do with that. And I'm just saying wait because Jamil's a big proponent about proper yeast pitching and volumes of yeast and what you need to get in there. And we're going to be having a big yeast discussion, so he can talk about that. But it's part of the fermentation that he's talking about. If the problem with that sweetness and flavor is fermentation, certainly the amount of yeast you pitch has something to do with it. So just give us till the next, another 15 minutes we'll be getting into that, and you should be able to get your answer about how yeast pitching affects that flavor. So there you go. Okay, let's do our official tasting right now, which is the Heineken. And we're doing the Heineken right now.
Heineken.
The keg can, if you've got your little Heineken can. So go ahead and get your glasses ready and pour them into there. We've got ours out. And again, the point here is not to celebrate any beer we bring in here, but to help out the palate. So Jamil, a BJCP judge, he's certified actually.
National.
He's called in before and helped us do that. And now we got him here, so it's a good choice. So starting with the can, which does not allow in any light, and we're hoping has a different flavor than the bottle, so we can pick those out. What are you guys thinking of aroma just off the bat?
I don't get the usual Heineken skunkiness out of it.
Yeah, there's no skunkiness at all. It's got a nice grainy Pilsner malt character, so a little bit of DMS, which you're going to get with that light Pilsner.
I'm smelling the DMS off of it.
I smell more alcohol in this than I would expect out of a regular kind of a buy it off the shelf type of beer.
The DMS will have a sweet, kind of corny kind of smell to it. So
maybe that
might be what you're smelling.
Okay.
I think it's got a great aroma. It's very sweet, malty.
Yeah, nice Pilsner aroma.
Mm-hmm. It smells fresh.
Yes.
Very fresh.
Is there a date on those cans by chance?
Let me check. Hold on.
I wonder when they put them in.
It's a nice can.
You can take it home with you, Doc.
Yeah.
There was a time when craft brewers, maybe not the brewers themselves, but the drinkers of craft brew were really shunning anything that came in a can. You don't put it in a can. But there's a movement now, and I think it has to do with a change in the lining of aluminum cans, where craft brewers are really talking about switching over to cans again because of the problems that bottles have with oxidation and light and things like that. And there's some people are saying that the next big craft brew movement is going to be to put it back in cans instead of bottles.
Cans are a superior package.
It's just weird how that's sort of a trendy thing, because if you were a fashionable beer drinker, you weren't drinking out of a can 2 years ago.
But they've been lined with plastic for
long time,
20 years, 30 years.
But they're lighter; they don't break.
Yeah,
they protect against the light.
Everything.
They hold temperature or take the temperature of the fridge quicker.
Yeah. Does a bottle cap hold a good seal long term?
No. I mean, it can, but, it's not, when you're manufacturing millions and you have like a 0.1% failure on a crown cap,
But you should still be drinking your beer out of the glass anyway, and not straight out of the bottle.
Pour it into a glass.
Pour it from a can into a glass.
A bottle into a glass. Because, every once in a while you end up you're forced to drink out of a bottle, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you take that cap off, and what do you get but rust in your mouth from the crown cap, where when it gets crimped, it exposes the metal, and there's a lot of humidity in there. It rusts. If you wipe off the bottle on a white piece of towel or something, you see that rust on there.
Yeah.
And it's just...
it's So when is it that you actually drink out of a bottle? I know when it is for me. It's when I get the beer. The chick sets the beer down, and I say, "Can I have a glass with that?" She looks at me funny, and she never comes back. So it's either no beer or beer out of a bottle.
The chick.
Why's it got to be the chick?
Because the guys know.
Sexist.
The guys know.
Such a sexist dog.
Hey, I've never had
whatever.
I've never had a male server not bring me back a glass.
It's a male thing.
In Germany,
that's because they like you.
In Bavaria, it's actually very common to
Yeah.
drink out of a bottle. It's very, very common to drink Helles out of the bottle. You will hardly find anybody that wouldn't drink Helles out of a bottle. You would never, ever, though, touch a beer out of a can. Never, ever. Never. You would never drink it. It's just, it's considered being crappy because the can just really infects the flavor of any beer.
No.
That's what Germans think.
It's because
the
Budweiser comes
old
over in cans and they're fighting that.
And it's the old
I don't
cans.
blame them, though.
Although, that's what I was going to say. In the discussions I've been hearing, craft brewers, Sean O'Sullivan's one in particular, I was reading an article from him, and one of the guys, not the brewer, not Matt from Firestone, but one of their distributors was talking about it. And it's that the new cans have a different lining than they used to have.
Yep.
I remember I drank a Tecate once when I was about 16 or so, and I drank it while I was in Mexico, and it was out of a can. I was on a 24-hour train ride from Mexicali down to Mazatlan in Mexico, and I took 2 drinks of this can, and I've never touched a Tecate since. And I was drinking aluminum. And there was no other flavor. And it left my mouth coated with aluminum after I had that drink. Everyone around me was drinking it up. Yeah. But I could not get away from this taste. I mean, it had infused the beer with aluminum.
Are you sure it was aluminum? Have you ever licked aluminum?
There is no doubt in my mind. Yes, like you ever put aluminum foil in your mouth, just because you're dumb and you're trying to see how it goes against your fillings.
Yeah, I've done that.
Okay, thanks, John. I needed a little help with that.
Or when you don't get the wrapper off the Nestle's Crunch all the way.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, there you go. That's what I'm talking about. It was aluminum, hands down, and it was bad. And I don't know, listen, I'm not going to say that there definitely is a new lining in the aluminum cans. Maybe that's a marketing ploy, but that's the talk that I've heard, and that they're now treating them in such a way that there is no, crossing of flavors there. I don't know if that's true or not.
They've been plastic lined for a long time, but they might be improving the technology behind that as well.
Maybe it's not plastic anymore. I don't know.
One of the reasons the craft brewers don't use cans right now is because it's more expensive than bottles. So now they're coming out with cheaper short run canning lines,
right?
And you'll start seeing more craft brewing.
Well, let's get back to finish this one off.
Yeah, good idea. What other flavors you guys have in here?
Well, the one thing I wanted to say is this is the closest I haven't actually had a Heineken can. I've always wanted to, but I never really could do it.
They're a cool can.
I've had Heineken in Amsterdam, and right off the tour.
This is what it's like. Yeah.
This is exactly what it's like.
Okay.
This is a little old. You can tell it's got a little age on it, but it's not bad. But this is very close to what I got over there, and it's nothing close to what's in the bottle.
Right. Well, we're about to find that out too. Get your bottles ready and pour those.
I've never seen my wife's not a big beer drinker, but I never saw her drink beer so fast as when we were drinking this at the Heineken.
Nice balance of malt and
it is
and hops and
it's nice.
No real hop character, but
it's nice grainy and a good malt on the back of my tongue.
But it's certainly more, as far as not having a hop character, it's certainly more flavorful and bitter than just your regular domestic pills.
Oh, yes.
I mean, it has a lot more hop character than that,
It's an all malt beer, so it's nice.
Yeah, a touch more, just to balance. But as far as like hop flavor, hop aroma, not really.
Sure. Yeah, there's none of that grassy or
but it's a nice, creamy, well balanced Pilsner.
Yeah.
Really, very clean. It's got some sulfur in it from the lager, yeast and some DMS, which is to be expected.
And the carbonation's all there, so you get a lot of bitterness from that. Is this the bottle?
I've got the bottle in front of me here, and already, I hope
this is not as bad as some of the bottles I've had.
But you can instantly smell the skunk.
Yeasty, too.
You got yeast, huh?
Yeast and skunk, but it's not as bad as I've had some bottles that just as soon as you pop that cap, it's
Yeah, it's skunky.
It is skunky.
That's quite skunky.
That's bizarre.
It's like a skunk with a yeast infection.
But so many people, think that's what Heineken is supposed to.
Yeah.
And they
Well,
swear that
bottle, yeah.
and they swear there's a different Heineken over in Europe, and they bottle
Yeah, good
different
one.
stuff for us Americans.
The malt is still there though in the bottle, but the aroma is not.
Yeah.
I drink the bottled beer on the East Coast, and it's by far fresher there.
It's
It hasn't been sitting in any light.
It hasn't traveled, 2,000
Skunky
miles.
enough to overwhelm any Pilsner malt character.
Even the malt is sweeter and not as grainy.
Now, let's go over, what is the skunk exactly? It's the light, but what is the light that goes into the beer doing?
The light strikes the hop constituents in there and forms free radicals. And it will form mercaptans, which are sulfur compounds. And it's a very low threshold for these sulfur compounds. And they come across as skunky. Same as the skunk smell.
But like Miller Brewing, they actually have a process of tweaking the hop acids to make them unable to skunk. They block that conversion, and so their hop extracts which they use won't skunk, even though they're using clear bottles.
Well, isn't the same thing with Newcastle? It's proposed that they use extracts too, hop extracts, so they're clear bottles.
Yeah.
That everybody recognizes they're clear bottles. So they
I
don't.
thought I had some Newcastle that was skunked though, but it might be my
Could
imagination.
have been,
at this
but
point.
I've
Newcastle tastes better in the can.
Yeah, I'm sure it does.
On draft, it's much better too.
Yeah.
Well, especially with a clear bottle, but that's product recognition. If they went to a different bottle, people probably wouldn't. They'd think it was a different beer and they wouldn't buy it.
This the Heineken in the bottle is also a little thinner, a little drier, and a little more oxidized.
That's what I get. The grain isn't there.
One of the issues on packaging as well is in the can. They can get them packaged with a little less oxygen than they can in the bottle. That's at least what I had heard at one point. So that's also a factor as well.
Oh, the can is much better.
Yeah, definitely. This one isn't. You're right, though, Doc. This isn't as skunky as I've had it.
Yeah,
but it's there. There's a big difference from the can to this one.
Yeah, I popped a couple of them, and the whole car smelled like skunk.
Yeah. Now you know what happens. That corn, that DMS flavor you're telling me that I'm mixing up with alcohol. That gets intertwined with the skunk in the bottle, right? And I'm really tasting. I can still pick out the corn, but it's such a different corn from the can. Because you also got that skunk flavor.
It's like a skunk that's been eating corn.
Yeah. It's a skunk with a yeast infection that's been eating corn. They should put that in their next ad promo.
Their next ad promo should say, just drink the can.
Yeah, exactly.
The canned one was
Heineken. Stick to the can.
Connecticut probably wouldn't let you have that on the label.
Yeah, they would not. And maybe not Utah either.
Yeah.
Anyone there.
Well, they won't let you have an elf.
Yeah,
well, they do now.
I tell you, that canned version, I would rank, like Doc was saying, there's a very slight touch of age to it, but, I'd be in the upper mid-40s, 47.
I like that one.
48 points out of 50, 47 points out of 50.
I like that.
Wow,
one.
way up there.
Yeah.
That's a darn
nice
fine
beer.
example.
It is.
Of the style.
It's got a little age on it because it's
bottled version.
What style beer would you
20 something? 28?
Yeah. I would get a 28 on that. But the can was just sweet. It was nice.
Is this what type of style of beer would you say this was, Jamil?
Northern German Pils.
No.
I mean,
it's a Dutch Pilsner.
A Dutch Pilsner. That's what I was trying to get at. A Dutch Pilsner.
All right, we got to take a break. Anything else you guys want to add to this one? Because I got questions stacking up already before we even get into the yeast talk. So I want to take a quick break. Awesome. Everybody can relieve their bladders.
I wonder who gets the Rambo.
We'll come back. Who gets the Rambo? I know. Explain the Rambo to anybody who doesn't know, Doc.
That's the dump bucket.
I just threw that out. So
you did?
No, he's got some more.
You know when you're tasting and you don't finish the bottom of it because you're moving on to the next taste, you pour it all in. Right. Everybody pours it all into one thing.
You can't drink everything.
You can't.
You can't. We'd just be slammed. So.
Well, we're getting there.
Should make someone drink the Rambo though.
Jamil?
You should bring a mat home from work so we can actually pour it through the mat and then dump it in your glass.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, the big announcement. That's right, folks. Right when we come back, the big announcement. And you guys are going to be happy about it. I am too. I've done a lot of work on it this week to make it just ready to go. And And we're going to talk about it and unveil it when we get back. So a short break, I think a couple of songs, and we'll come back. I got your questions in front of me. I'm not ignoring them. We'll do those. Then we'll get into the yeast discussion. Everybody happy with that?
Yeah.
All right, you're tuned into the Brewing Network. We'll be right back.
And now back to the Brewcasters. On the Brewing Network.
All right, the moment we've all been waiting for.
Can I give a drum roll?
The big announcement. I don't have a drum roll. Yeah, you could do that.
With the helicopter.
Yeah, this is my chest.
The fluttering of his little heart.
He's an excited little man, John is. Here's the deal. We got a lot of new things coming for January. We're going to slowly unveil them as the weeks go by here. Although I guess there's not that much. We could probably do it in a couple of days. But
no, we got more.
We got lots of good stuff. And one of our biggest things coming is what we're going to announce right now. The Brewing Network. In association with Dr. Scott Productions. Actually, the big news is quite simple. What we've done is signed up Jamil. He's been nice enough to add a show, a bi-weekly show to our lineup. Jamil is coming to the Brewing Network permanently, along with John as his co-host, to do the Style Show coming in January 2006.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. All beer styles will be covered. You'll be doing it twice a month, I believe, on Mondays. The Jamil Beer Style Show has officially been announced, coming to the Brewing Network in January 2006. Yes.
I think Oz is going to have to take off another day.
Yeah, it's going to be rough. Now we're looking at Sunday and Monday of programming.
Wow.
Guys better start working Saturdays so that you get your 2 days on Sunday.
I already
Monday.
work Saturdays.
Well, that was hard holding that one back.
It was hard. We've known about this for some time, but it's been in the works, and we've had to, Jamil's been hard at work on it, and him and John have been going back and forth. Why don't you guys tell us a little bit about what you got planned for the show in January?
We're going to be talking about BJCP style guidelines, every type of style, subcategories, the 23 beer styles, and basically talk about process, ingredients, proper yeast that's appropriate for it.
So A to B,
Yeah,
A to Z.
Really, it's, appreciating, what's out there, but, like I said, you don't have to brew to style, but understanding, how you achieve certain things. So really the core of it is learning how to brew, a particular type of beer. So, somebody gives you a target. Can you brew to it? And by doing that, you learn a lot about the different ingredients, and you master the tools that allow you to brew any beer you want.
Yeah.
And if you spend time on that, it's very rewarding. So
I think
really
that's the key here is that it doesn't have to be a debate about whether or not you're brewing to style or brewing styled beers. Jamil is an advocate and makes an excellent point of knowing what your tools are, and I think that's where the style guidelines help the most. So, man, that's just a great way to do it, is to go down the style. Now, you guys are going to pick a new style each show. Is that what you're planning on?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And just going through that A to Z, right?
Pretty much.
And so you'll understand what the beer is like.
Okay.
And what the style, the range of the style, and where you might get good examples, and then all the ingredients that go in, the process that goes in. And, if you don't care for that style, you can pick up, maybe some aspect of the style. So, dark color without roasty flavor. How do you get that?
Right.
Oh, how do I apply that to other beer? I want a American wheat, a light wheat beer that doesn't have a roasty flavor, but it's dark. How do I do that? Okay,
Right.
well, cool. You can do that. And you do that by learning all these different ingredients. So,
okay.
That's the thing. It'll be brewing focused.
Yeah. So that's actually another a good key, is that for those of you who come to this show for just the information and not so much for the fun, which is okay. We have some who do and some who don't. Not that Jamil's show won't be fun. It's not what I mean, but he won't be sitting around making gay jokes the whole time, and or he may. It depends on how the show's going, I suppose. But you can. And my point is, you're going to tune in. You're going to get right to the good stuff and get a good fill of beer information in a condensed amount of time. And that's why we're real happy to have Jamil on, signing up with us to do that.
So do we have a name for it?
It's the Beer Style Show with Jamil Zainashev.
I like the Guild.
The Guild?
Guild the Lily? Or
No, the Style Guild.
The Style Guild. Well, you'll have to talk to Jamil with that. We've only created one promotional item two promotional items so far, so it could still be changed. Yeah.
And Justin has lots of time to do this sort of thing, so
it's
his life,
all
man.
the promos we want.
Stack it up, man.
Yeah, we will. Awesome.
So
put it in your inbox.
Go ahead, Danielle.
Yeah,
you don't have to raise your hand to talk.
Really?
You can speak anytime you
I'm
want.
just used like that from our private life.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
Yeah, see, in here he has a volume thing.
Well, anyway, I just wanted to give you guys, and in particular John and Jamil, a little feedback from the chat room about this announcement.
Please do.
It's huge. People go like, woo, and stuff like that. They are really excited. They say more Jamil equals more beer, better beer. They're really very stoked about that. They're just a little concerned that they can never go back to work now. Anyway, there's two very urgent questions, and I don't know if there's any official update on that. Are they going to be archived, the shows, and are they going to be podcasted?
Yes, both of those things will happen. In fact, my plan is to give Jamil and the Beer Style Show its own entire page on the Brewing Network website. And I'm hoping, I'm still going to coordinate. We're going to have a little talk, I think, after the show today, I hope.
Yep.
You told your wife you're not coming home anytime soon.
I'm never going back home. Spending the rest of my time here.
We got him. What my plan is, and like I said, I'll work this out with Jamil, is he's going to have his own page, and he can update that and really be in control of the content, and so that way nobody has to wait for me to update what's happening for each of the shows, and he can really, in fact, he's a bit more net savvy than I am, so a lot of the features that he wants to add will be easily done so. And yes, they our podcasts are being beta tested as we speak. I haven't even announced that we have podcast officially yet, and we have so many podcast subscribers, it's unbelievable. Yeah. And there's actually a problem with our podcast right now that's being worked out, but that's why I'm beta testing and not actually making it available on our webpage or anything else, although now you can all go find it if you want. But be aware there will still be some bugs. But hopefully by January, all that stuff's worked out. So yes, Jamil's show will be available via podcast, via archive, in a timely fashion, just like our Sunday shows are now.
Yeah, right. Well, I guess fair enough.
Yes. So there you go. And I'm excited. You know, we get a lot of requests to get Jamil in here and a lot of questions for him, and we heard that, and I think Jamil heard it too, and has been kind enough to, I mean, let's face it, he's donating his time here. We're not sending him a paycheck for the show.
Wait a minute.
Oops.
Wasn't part of the deal, Jamil.
And we're real happy about that, because I agree, the more access you guys have to people like Jamil who can get that info out there, the better. And these are the goals for the Brewing Network. So, like I said, we've got some more surprises lined up for you, and some more good things coming to you in January. We've got good plans for February, March. I mean, it's going to keep coming. And this is just our first big one we felt was one worthy of a big announcement.
Yeah.
So, I'm happy about it, Jamil. I think it's going to be just a darn good time.
Well, the folks in the chat are just too kind.
They're cool. They like you, man.
They're good people.
They knew you better, they might not, but
yeah, exactly.
Jamil, you can take your cut out of mine.
Half of zero.
No family time, or what's that?
Yeah, we'll send both your checks at the same time.
We'll commiserate.
2040.
If that makes you feel any better. Okay, before we get into our main yeast discussion, let me do just a couple things I had from the chat room from earlier here. Person wants to know, I've got a basement that stays at about 59 to 60 degrees. What should I brew? He says it's too warm for a lager, but too cold for an ale. I would like to do a wheat, but what would you recommend in that sort of temperature, a 59 to 60 degree basement?
You know, if you just throw a cardboard box over the carboy, that's warm enough for an ale. You know, if you you chill down your wort to 67 degrees or so, and then pitch your yeast, the yeast will keep it warm enough.
Yeah, they will. As it's fermenting,
it'll
give it a little insulation. It'll go up. I just did a Kolsch at 62, and it was pumping along. It finished in 4.5 days at 62.
I think that's a good problem to have too, because I don't think it'll get as much potential off flavors colder than you will.
Right. It might hotter. It might ferment a little bit slower, but it will ferment, and you're not shocking it by going up and down.
Then actually, you could get yourself a firm wrap. From B3 and a controller, And, you can do anything warmer than that.
It's always better to be just a little on the cold side because it's easier to warm it up than it is to cool it down.
Okay.
No, and less diacetyl, less acetaldehyde.
I'm with Jamil about fermenting just a little on the cool side.
Yeah.
Pushing the envelope on that one.
All right, here's another quick one. I have a brew that when I plug the refractometer reading into ProMash, it says it's at 1015, but my hydrometer reads 1030. Taste test doesn't taste like it's too sweet, and both tools are calibrated.
Does it have ATC? Automatic temperature compensation.
Good. Yeah, that's good.
Mm-hmm. Could be the temperature compensation.
It could be the temperature compensation. I would calibrate both of them again.
Mm-hmm.
I just recalibrated my refractometer again last weekend. So.
Well, and
that's a lot
I'd
to
say
be
also,
off.
yeah, I'd also say, well, as long as your tools are consistent, it doesn't really matter what the numbers are. So if your numbers were, 50 and 75, so as long as
right.
it's like on mash temp. All right, so you brewed a beer and your temperature reads, 154, but it's still not got quite the residual body that you want, dextrins that you want. Go ahead and make it 156. Well, the recipe said 152. I'm already at, no. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
There's something else in your process or whatever. Just go ahead and adjust from there. Just use it as a guidepost. It doesn't. It's the numbers are helpful in comparing with other brewers.
Yeah.
But when you're comparing against yourself, when you're rebrewing the same recipe over and over,
yeah,
you just need to know what's different from the last time you brewed it.
And what the differences are going to make when you do those changes.
But for this particular one, he wants to know whether it's 1030 or 1015. There's no way to tell if they're both calibrated?
It could be, improper use of the tool. It could be something's not quite calibrated right. It could be,
temperature.
A number of things. Temperature.
Well, one of them's wrong. They can't both be wrong.
Exactly.
Well, how is he getting his reading off? Because refracts read in bricks, close to Plato. So, is he reading off of 15?
No,
he's punching it into ProMash, and that's what ProMash is telling him, so... But he could, possibly the sample wasn't used properly on the hydrometer, or rather on the
that's a big swing. If they were off 5 degrees,
right?
I would be suspect about one of the two.
This is post ferment, so.
You can't do a refractometer post ferment.
Yeah, you're not getting real.
You won't get it. No, you won't get it.
There you go.
But again, even ProMash will do an adjustment for you, but. One of the things on hydrometers is people don't spin them quick enough to get the bubbles off. If this is post-ferment, the bubbles tend to cling and lift the hydrometer up, and you end up with...
Is that what you do to get rid of the bubbles?
You
just spin it?
You spin it. Or you can bounce it off the bottom a little bit.
I always wait a half a frickin' hour for those bubbles to go away.
No, spin it or bounce it off the bottom.
You should have just asked, Jack.
Well, I try to keep my stupid questions to a minimum,
That's a good question, though.
It is a
you have good questions. You do.
You just spin that thing, huh?
Yeah.
And the bubbles, they just magically disappear?
Yeah, they do. They just let go.
Fly off.
That's awesome.
The hell are you laughing at?
I could see the conversation too.
It's your stupidity that drives me about you, seriously.
I do. I put it in there and then I go watch TV for half an hour and hope that the bubbles go away.
Well, I leave mine in there for a while as well.
What's the rush?
No hurry.
Right.
And I'll spin it and I'll look at it and then I'll go and do something else. I come back, I'll spin it again, check it, just to make sure.
See? You're not laughing at Jamil, are you?
No, of course not.
Well, no.
She knows I'm just trying to be nice to you.
Yeah. All right,
but
I'm spinning.
It's basically tough to take a refractometer reading
after
post-fermentation.
Okay, so it's likely that his hydrometer is the closer one if it's a calibrated hydrometer.
You have to know your initial starting.
If he started at
you have to have
11:20
accurate starting numbers, and then when you use the refractometer, you punch that in as well as what you're reading currently, because the alcohol thins out the beer. And as far as specific gravity goes, so the hydrometer. But, he's getting a lower reading of the refractometer, which is weird.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Bring a sample, and we'll all test it.
There you go. Okay. I'll go ahead and start off our yeast discussion just with a question from the chat room. And then I know that John's got a good lineup of things to bring us through it. But this question is about why Yeast smack packs. and about whether or not, one pack is adequate for a 10-gallon batch. Says he's had mixed results. So he's been making starters to avoid any problems. But more than one person, he says, has told him that I shouldn't need a starter with the large smack pack. And I think this is a good place to get Jamil started because...
I can see it.
Don't get me started.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, he has a calculator that on his site that says, if you're using Y yeast or white labs or dry yeast, this is the amount of yeast you want.
Y yeast extra large pack is about 100 to 120 billion cells, right?
Yeah. The Y yeast.
Or their
Y yeast, yeah.
How viable are they?
Right. And you can assume as long as the pack's been treated well and stored cold and is fairly recent, you can assume a pretty high viability rate. But the little popper pack in there is not a starter. It's just to prove that the yeast has not all completely died. That's the only purpose for it.
Okay.
And you really, for 10 gallons, if you go to www.mrmalty.com, mrmalty.com, there's the pitching calculator there, and that will tell you how much of a starter you need. For 10 gallons, depends on, of course, the concentration of the wort, how high gravity this is. If it's a high gravity beer, you can need more yeast. Lower gravity, you need less yeast, but one of those smack packs is about half of what you need for a 5-gallon batch at 1048 or 12 Plato.
Okay.
So you need 4 of those for a 10-gallon batch.
Right. At 1048. Now, if you're making most homebrewers are in the 1060 range most of the time. You're going to need a little bit more.
What's with these people saying you don't need to do a starter? Is it just, their experience? They're saying, hey, mine came out fine, so you don't need it?
It's the simpler's better kind of thing. I've always done it this way, and we don't
It all
need
makes
to do that.
beer.
It all makes, exactly, it all makes beer.
Okay,
Now,
I just was wondering if there was a particular school of thought aside from that.
Does it make a beer where you go, oh my God, this is fantastic? Or does it make a beer where you say, yeah,
that's
this is beer.
That's a nice homebrew. That's a nice homebrew. I don't want to hear, that's a nice homebrew.
Yeah, I don't want to hear nice homebrew. I want to hear, this is the best damn thing I've ever had.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm sure you've heard that.
There's things that are going to make a better beer, and pitching enough yeast is going to do it.
Yeah.
And you never know how much of that pack or whatever is viable yeast. If it's been around a little while, if it got shipped, if it's bad, if it's only 80% viable, 60% viable.
Yeah.
Only the viable stuff is what's going to help you.
Well, I know White Labs fresh out of the refrigerator is about 94 to 98% viability. But if it's actually kept out in 5 to 7 days on the UPS truck, it's about 80 to 85% viability.
And so
but for those people on the East Coast that are freaking out about their, hey, it's been 7 days, it's been 90 degrees, just do a starter, you'll be fine, you have healthy yeast.
Well, and I tell you that, the White Lab stuff is pretty damn tough. And that's some fantastic viability you get even after it's shipped.
And 80%'s not bad, but you just put your blood, sweat, and tears into this wort, and you want to give it every chance it can have, and its starter's going to just stack the deck in your favor.
Or you've at least put in a good drunken afternoon.
Yeah.
And the whole thing about starters is people don't do it because they think it's really hard. I've got to do something really technical. It's like, no.
Yeah.
Just get yourself a flask that can go on the stove, toss in this amount of DME and some dechlorinated water.
Yeah.
Boil it, wait for it to cool, drop your yeast in, done.
That's it. Check the archive last time. I went over my idiot process, and Jamil said, "Yep, that's fine."
That's it. So that's all you need, and you're doing better than 95% of homebrewers.
Now you do it a day or two ahead of time, and it's just sitting there reminding you that you have to brew.
Yep,
that's a good thing.
Hey, what's the difference between bricks and Play-Doh, guys?
There's a slight difference, and they're really close. I used to know the history of this, but that's one of those questions I need to
prep. It just came through live in the chat room.
Yeah, the difference is, which guy, Balling or Plato, ended up, the numbers were slightly off. So a correction factor was applied, and that's where the difference is between bricks and Plato. They're very close.
So which one is the corrected one supposed to be? Play-Doh or bricks?
I have no idea.
Why do we use, so many different measurements? Why isn't there, just one that everyone uses?
They were done a long time ago.
In the late 1800s.
Yeah, I think bricks was the first one. Play-Doh came after, and then we've got specific gravity now, which is nice because it's, you could talk about 1, 2, 3 bricks, and you're talking about 4 degrees of specific gravity. It's like grams versus ounces.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You know, grams are nice because there's 29 grams in an ounce, and so,
28.
or 28, 29.
But who's counting?
28 points.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's 29.
But
and you end up getting a finer measurement. So
okay.
But either's fine.
In the home brewing world, it's
wine likes bricks.
Yeah, wine likes bricks, but the home brewing they're so close. It's just so close. It's just not worth dealing with it.
Okay. All right, here's what I want to do. The last time we had Jamil on, we really went over yeast starters and proper pitching amounts and things like that. And like Jamil said, if you go to MrMalty.com, he now has a calculator on there that can really help you out. I'm happy to entertain questions if you have them, but I think what John and I were really kind of hoping to do, and John's plan for it, is to kind of pick up where we left off that time, because we talked about where to start. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about what happens now that you've pitched and got into fermentation.
Yeah.
John, you can kind of pick us up from wherever we left off.
Well, we've already figured out the proper amount of pitch rate of yeast. I think it'd be a good discussion talking about ales and lagers. What's the amount of time? What's the proper amount of time that you want to ferment? If you don't pitch the proper rate and you don't go a proper amount of time, do you get any potential off flavors? And if so, what are those off flavors?
Well, all right.
Let's talk about ales
you
first.
You got a lot of questions,
Yeah.
and you know, the thing is, the proper amount of time is when the fermentation is done. Mm-hmm. Okay, so there's no set amount of dates. I know all these homebrew techs. The thing that drives me nuts is, homebrew techs, and people ask me, well, how many days until it's done? Mm-hmm. It's like, well, it's done when it's done. Now, if you had an ideal ferment or, less, it's going to take shorter or longer. If you have less sugars or more sugars, it's going to take shorter or longer. Simple sugars, more complex sugars. So, it's done when it's done. There's not a specific time frame. And that's an important thing to remember. Don't rush it. The yeast will sit there with the beer, and if you keep it at fermentation temperatures, you're in no risk, no danger.
And what determines
maybe of running out of beer, but not of ruining the flavor.
Inventory. But what determines a beer being done? I mean, what are you looking for in the end product?
Well,
so no more drop in.
Can you taste
finishing gravity?
Right. Okay. So as soon as it stops converting sugars to alcohol and CO2. Then you need a couple of days for it to finish up cleaning up some of the other parts of the process, some of the intermediate compounds and stuff like that. So what I usually do, if I'm doing an ale, a standard ale, that's about 12 bricks, and I've pitched the right amount of yeast, and in 7 days it's pretty much done. I mean, it's done as far as it's probably done in 3 to 4 days, but I'll let it sit 10 days. Because I know that I'm doing a good process, and I know that, even if I screw up a little bit, in 10 days it's completely gone past the end of what it needs, and it's sat for a couple extra days.
So my leaving it for 30 is overkill?
I think that's fine.
Cool.
For an ale?
As long as you're a sanitary kind
I am. I don't have sanitation issues.
Well,
I just got, I'm too busy to put that sucker in a keg issues.
I wouldn't leave it at 80, 85 degrees, but, if it's sitting at 65, no problem. Just
now
let it sit there, let it finish up.
Okay, let me ask you this, because the last time I let it sit for a real long time, I temp controlled it the whole time, and I don't remember if it was you or John, but I seem to remember being told, because this is what I did this time, I hope so, that once that primary fermentation is really done and I'm not seeing a real active thing happening. In other words, I waited about 10 days, and then I went ahead and took it out of my bucket that I temp control it and put it on my counter, and it doesn't get above 68 degrees now. It's between 68 and 70 degrees, just sitting on my counter. And is it okay that I did that once primary sort of ended, and now I'm just kind of leaving it till I put it in the keg?
Yeah, the yeast will be a little more stable the colder it is, but
okay.
Some people will do that as a kind of diacetyl rest, warm it up, get a little more activity to reabsorb the diacetyl that's produced during fermentation, but it's not really necessary. Over time, even at fermentation temperatures, it'll reabsorb the diacetyl.
Okay.
You don't need a warm diacetyl rest, but that's fine too.
Am I though creating a potential for off flavors by letting the yeast go ahead and warm up, even though primary was pretty done?
No, the yeast probably aren't going to put out any more flavors after that point.
Okay.
I think we're more worried about the autolysis.
It's already pooped out probably.
Yeah.
Went dormant.
One of the things that staling you can the amino acids and the fatty acids of the yeast. If they kick out a lot of that into the beer, your beer will age quicker.
Okay.
So that's one thing to worry about. But a month is starting to stretch it. But
would you have kept it cold the whole time if it were yours? Would you have stayed down at fermentation temp for the whole?
I just did a mild, and then I had to take the kids down to Disneyland, and before I left, I stuck it in the fridge just so it would sit there cold, so I didn't have to worry about the yeast because I wanted to reuse the yeast.
Okay.
So I moved it somewhere colder.
Okay. All right, fair enough.
What is diacetyl? I'm just curious.
Diacetyl is what you're going to get for that. The artificial butter flavor that they use in microwave popcorn. That's diacetyl.
They actually use that?
I love that flavor.
It's diacetyl.
Popcorn. It's not in your beer.
Yeah, it's truly
I don't like
diacetyl. It's the same chemical compound.
It's a natural thing that yeast pump out.
Yeah, and what you're going to have with diacetyl, if you have a warm ferment, extra warm ferment, or certain bacteria will produce diacetyl. It gives it kind of a fake, artificial, buttery kind of character to the beer, which can be kind of slick on the tongue. In this modern day and age, it's become anti-diacetyl. I run into judges all the time that say, oh my God, this has got diacetyl. This got, it's like they're finding it where it's not, and they're freaking out about it. And a little bit of diacetyl in a beer kind of rounds it out, and I don't think it's a bad thing.
Although there are some styles, right, that just say no diacetyl.
Yeah, some styles shouldn't have it. But
ESB is a good one for some diacetyl.
Exactly, most of the English beers are.
Mm-hmm.
And again, and that's the styles. But if you're not worried about styles,
right?
Sometimes a touch of diacetyl is okay and kind of rounds out a beer. If you don't like it, don't add it to. Don't allow it in your beer. There's ways to get around it.
Little butter goes a long way, if you ask me.
Exactly.
Well, the yeast pump it out anyway.
In small amounts, it gives a rich fullness to the beer.
But the yeast pump it out anyway. But at the end, when they're done eating all the sugars, they're looking for something else to eat, and they will reconvert the diacetyl back into something else that doesn't have that flavor profile.
Is it a food source for them at that?
Yeah, it is at that point. But you can't if you have a hot ferment to begin with, they're going to put off a lot, which is much more.
They won't be able to reabsorb.
Which is much more than they can reabsorb, which will leave it in the finished beer.
Or if they're stressed. And one of the things is, a healthy pitch, healthy ferment. You're not going to get a lot of diacetyl. It's just not going to happen.
All right. How about a good question like this about it has to do with yeast and fermentation I got from the forum. Would using yeast... Well, let me preface it by, we've talked about using servomyces before.
Right.
And we've talked about it mostly in higher gravity beers, to feed the yeast. Servomyces is a nutrient for yeast, and it's basically dead yeast cells that you're putting in there so that yeast, can gain, the live yeast cells can gain nutrients from that to get to work. The forum wanted to know, would using yeast from a previous batch at the end of the boil be similar to using servomyces?
Right, a lot of brewers, commercial brewers do that, and a lot of home brewers do that. The value of using yeast cells is you're also going to bust apart those yeast cells, and it provides lipids for the yeast that is reproducing in your wort, and those lipids can be assimilated into the new yeast.
Okay.
The servomyces also gives you a zinc base, which they say is, biologically, available, and so it actually is better than just adding zinc powder. So, I haven't found a whole lot of success with, when I add servomyces, I'm looking towards, the repitch, but a lot of people tell me that it really does a big difference in that batch.
Okay.
And some people I respect a lot have told me that. I think Olin told me that, and I think John told me that, and a couple other people have noticed that makes a difference.
Okay.
I haven't, but I wouldn't dispute it either.
So when you say you put it in because you're looking forward to repitch,
Right.
you're hoping that they then have enough nutrients after they've gone ahead and pooped out in your current beer from using the Cervomyces that they come right back to life real strong?
Yeah, I'm looking for yeast health, not just this batch, but, down the road and multiple batches. So, when you add the zinc, or when you pitch healthy yeast to start with,
yeah,
they're pretty much healthy enough to go through the whole ferment, even with some minor problems. But, they need to kind of regather themselves and get ready for the next ferment as they start to go dormant. And if you don't have the proper nutrients in there, they can't prepare themselves to do the next batch properly.
Okay.
So, it all has to do with the cell wall health and, being, pliable enough and liquid enough to allow easy transport. If they get too leathery, they can't reproduce. They can't, move the alcohol outside the cell wall, things like that.
Okay.
So, that's where I see it as important. I think I mentioned on a previous show about, going to Sierra Nevada, and they use a certain amount of zinc in every batch, and they are very, very focused on their yeast. They have a lab. They check their yeast health continuously. They have yeast people, and it's a very smart move.
Right.
Are a lot of those nutrients absorbed in the anaerobic stage, where the yeast are multiplying and growing, or when would they reuse the zinc? When do they actually absorb the zinc or the lipids, or?
That's a good question. What happens when you first drop the yeast into the batch? They start to acclimate themselves. What they're doing is they're using their glycogen and trehalose reserves to prepare themselves for proper fermentation, for reproduction, and they're creating sterols and they're taking in the oxygen that's there, and all of that is to get a nice pliable cell wall so they can bud and produce more yeast, and later on so they can be healthy enough and pliable enough to move the sugars in, move the alcohol out. If they can't move the alcohol out, what happens is at about 5% alcohol, they just shut down. So when you have these ferments that don't go to completion, what's happening is the yeast become, it's usually the alcohol toxicity. Alcohol is very toxic to yeast, and, they can stand about 5% and then they shut down. So we easily get, 10%, 15% alcohol out of yeast. And how do we do that? Well, it's good healthy yeast and it's good pliable walls. But when you're making these bigger beers, it's something very important. They need oxygen to produce those, sterols and those lipids, and, using the dead yeast cells, like the listener asks, provides a little more, and they can ensure good health.
Okay,
right. So they don't get too leathery, and they're able to reproduce.
Now, kind of to follow that up, and I like this question because unlike you two jokers, John and Doc, who have all these fancy conicals, and that's what you've stuck to, Jamil also has a conical. But the guy brews like such a madman that he uses a bunch of carboys as well throughout his brew season, and still using those guys like myself and a few other poor homebrewers out there. What they want to know is what you would recommend for getting the yeast cake out of the bottom of a carboy without the trub, and then storing it for pitch at a later date.
Well, I've been working with Mark. Can't pronounce his last name, starts with a G, lives on the East Coast. And he's, we've been talking about how the process I do all mine with, and what I'll do is, I sterilize Nalgene bottles that I get from Sinmar in a pressure cooker. So they're sterile. I have a sterile container. I rack the beer into a keg, and I don't do any secondaries or anything. The beer goes from the primary carboy into a keg. Mm-hmm. And I use rubbing alcohol around the opening of the carboy, and then I flame it. I've got one of these creme brulee torches from B3, and I flame the daylights out of the opening, and then usually I leave just about a liter of beer in the carboy, and I swirl it, break up the yeast cake that's down there, and then I tilt it and pour it into the sterile Nalgene bottle. Then it goes into the fridge and just sits there. Now, when I'm ready to use it, which, different yeasts will last a different amount of time. You want to use it as soon as you can. I have some sterile water that I've put in the pressure cooker and sterilized it. and I can add a liter of sterile water, swirl the Nalgene bottle around. The clean, healthy yeast will be in this nice creamy liquid layer on top, and you're going to have an inch or two of little black crusty things and dead yeast in the bottom.
Yeah.
And you just go ahead and pour that creamy part into your beer or into your wort.
Right.
And leave the rest behind, and you're done.
And in that case, you pour it into your wort for your starter. Your starter wort.
No. Ready to pitch.
It's ready to go.
Ready to rock and roll.
All right, let me back
up. You haven't
up.
left it too long.
Let me back up then. So you've first of all, I like that what you're saying, that you can just, because you always have a little beer left in the bottom of your carboy, and that's actually what I was worried about. But you're saying that's a good thing. You do it on purpose. You go ahead and you stir that up.
Right.
You pour it into a container, and you don't add the distilled water at that point. You just put it in your fridge.
Yes.
You don't use the distilled water until you're ready for your brew day again.
Right.
Okay. And then you say sterilized water, but it's basically distilled water, right?
No, it's just sterilized.
Sterilized.
He put it through a pressure cooker,
but
so it's sterilized.
But you could use distilled water that you sterilize by boiling.
Sure.
Does it have to be? Could you use, say, tap water that you sterilized? Okay,
I sterilize tap water.
Okay.
Dechlorinated tap water. You don't want to use distilled for the osmotic gradient reasons, but
okay.
It's in there such a short time. You could use distilled or whatever, but the distilled water you buy at the store, it's not sterile.
Okay.
And I remember somebody did a test some years ago where they bought 10 different jugs of distilled water to see if it was sterile. Put it in the sun, and like 3 of them turned green.
Wow.
So
okay. All right. So whatever water, as long as you sterilize it, boil it. You use a pressure cooker, but you could boil it. Okay. And then you pour it right into the same container that you've already used, that you've poured the yeast slurry into, right? That you've had in your fridge.
Mm-hmm.
You pour it into that.
Usually, I'll decant the beer off, pour the liquid in, the water in, and then swirl it around in there. Or sometimes I'll put it into a different container if
okay,
whatever fits. I've got half liter, 2 liter.
Right. Wow. And then when you swirl it around, it settles out as a separation, is what you're saying, with the cream, which is the good stuff on top, and the junk on the bottom.
Within 15 minutes.
Really? Okay. You just swirl it and then leave it sit on the counter.
Yeah. Shake it up real good and let it sit.
Okay. And then you just pour that right into it's ready to go.
Yeah. Decant it off into the wort.
Into your carboy or whatever else. Okay.
But if you're going to do that,
fairly simple.
I like simple. If you want to make a lot of beer, you need simple. You don't want to go through these long, drawn-out processes. And generally, the more complex your process, the more contamination you're adding.
Yeah.
Right. So keep as many transfers down. But use the yeast pitching calculator to make sure you're pitching the right amount of yeast. Don't overpitch. Again, the yeast will kick out fatty acids, and those will add to the aging of your beer.
Okay.
Or can quickly age beer with a little bit of oxygen.
Head retention will fail.
Exactly. There's a lot of reasons not to overpitch.
How long will the yeast survive in those Nalgene bottles?
It depends on the strain. Certain strains, like the wheat strains, they die off really fast. Okay. I don't think, I would not use any of the Hefe strains more than, I wouldn't keep them more than a week at 34 degrees Fahrenheit. I wouldn't, the lager strains, they'll last several months. They're pretty good. But again, try and use them in, within a month, let's say. The other strains, like the California Ale strain, I think, some people say it isn't as durable, as stable. I say you can get, 3-4 weeks out of that as well. The English strains, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. You'll find out, the hard way if you push it. You'll pitch this in and, nothing will happen. And you'll realize, maybe it was a little too long.
What is a Nalgene bottle exactly?
Plastic.
Nalgene is a manufacturer of all sorts of containers, and it's a polypropylene. Polypropylene.
I think it's polypropylene.
Okay.
Polypropylene are autoclavable. I get them from Sinmar. The 1 liter containers are like $2.50.
What's special about it?
It's heat resistant plastic.
Okay.
Heat resistant, food grade. So
that's why you can pressure cook it.
250 degrees Fahrenheit. 15 psi on your pressure cooker for
so it doesn't melt.
25 minutes.
It's a plastic thing you can sterilize.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it doesn't kick any off flavors, plastic flavors into whatever you're doing.
Could I use, say, those plastic buckets that the extract comes in if I sterilize that to pour this into?
Depends on what material they're made of. I know the White Labs commercial jugs, they're not
good.
That heat tolerant, and they will end up in a little plastic puddle.
So where can people go to find these particular bottles?
REI.
Sinmar.com. REI has them, but they might be more expensive. Sinmar, CYNMAR.com.
Okay.
They sell them pretty reasonably priced.
Okay. Now someone wants to know, what about the pressure in the bottle? Will that kill the yeast?
Pressure in the Nalgene bottle. The reason you use a plastic bottle is because you can end up with pressure building and explosion. So you don't use glass for that reason.
No, expands enough.
Right. If your wort was completely, or your beer was completely finished fermenting, you're not going to build up any pressure. If you're building up pressure in there, clearly you didn't leave the beer on the yeast long enough.
Because it's still going.
And remember, he's storing his at 34.
Mm-hmm. Cold enough to
cold.
Put those suckers to sleep anyway. Yeah. But that's actually a great point. If there's anything left in there for those yeast to be eaten, you shouldn't have moved it.
Exactly. You went too quick. And that's one of the typical problems people have.
Okay.
Homebrewing.
Not leaving it.
You move too quickly.
You want to drink too fast.
You move too quickly.
Is washing the yeast in water, like you're talking about, better than acid washing?
Yeah, the acid washing, the reason, that's an interesting thing. People, when they talk about washing yeast, they're talking about using certain pH liquid and all that in order to kill off bacteria or stun the bacteria. The problem with that is it has a negative impact upon the yeast cells themselves.
Okay.
I do not do that. Rinsing with sterile water is not washing the yeast technically, but it.
You're basically separating more than you're washing.
Yeah, exactly. You're just trying to get the lighter, healthy yeast cells up and all the dead stuff to the bottom.
Yeah.
But
culling the herd.
Yeah, exactly. And
you're such a goat farmer, Doc.
Getting rid of that. So I would not do the acid thing. If you have that much bacteria in there where you need to acid wash, you need to look at your process.
Right.
Or, get fresh yeast. And again, it's very important. If you're going to repitch, you better be doing a nice, clean brewing. If you're not, you're just going to contaminate multiple batches.
Okay. All right,
better off doing starters.
Let's do one more question from the chat, take a real quick break, and then get on with some more John stuff there. We mentioned aerating the wort just a little while ago. We mentioned it in one sentence and moved right along. And I know we've had this discussion before. In fact, there's been some controversy about it in here lately. We had our first brewer come in, I don't remember who it was, who said... In fact, it might have been Dan. I don't know.
Yes, it was. Who told you were okay shaking that?
Shaking the thing was just fine.
That was the only thing I disagreed with.
You disagreed with. Okay. Well, this question isn't about, shaking versus pumping. They just want to know how long should I pump O2 with a 5 stone, and should I give it a blast of O2 12 hours later?
Yes and no.
Right. Yeah, and it depends on the
gravity of the beer too.
Well, the gravity of beer. It depends on the yeast strain, whether it's a lager or an ale. It depends on the size of the stone, and it depends on your flow rate. So, if you get yourself a medical regulator, like I'm sure Doc has and I have, you can dial in however many liters per minute that you're pumping out. So you have an actual measurement of the amount of oxygen going through that stone, and that otherwise. The timing based on just, I opened the valve so much, is not really very accurate. So, I'll say 2 minutes.
If that.
2 minutes.
If that. If you got a nice stone, I wouldn't even go that long. Yeah, a minute's probably great.
Because there was talk. Here's why the talk, I think, really happened with the shaking being okay. Because there is an amount of O2 you can put in that becomes toxic to the CO2, right?
Now,
so, what's this range where we can say we're doing a good job without being dangerous?
Okay, let's look at the dissolving rate of oxygen in the wort. We're not going to get up to a toxic rate because of atmospheric pressure. We would have to go hyperbaric probably to get that up there.
Okay.
And we're not going to do that, especially not at 30 seconds or a minute.
The interesting thing is, in homebrew sizes, you're probably not going to run into that problem. As you get into bigger batches, like John's doing 50-gallon batches, or you get into the commercial level, and you have the pressure of tall fermenter, where you can actually get to a toxic level.
Okay.
So generally not a problem, but and it could be toxic temporarily, and then it tends to outgas pretty quickly.
And
but you could build up a toxic level for a few
What
minutes.
he said about the tall fermenters, the pressure on a tall fermenter, you got a 20-foot fermenter, it's tall, and the pressure at the bottom is pretty substantial.
Yeah.
You're going to get more in there that way.
But there's no pressure in my carboy, because if I'm pumping oxygen into it, the top's open.
Yeah, but it has to do with liquid pressure.
Okay,
on the
so it
bottom
still
of that.
could be.
You're not going to do that, like you said, in the home brewing situation.
It's like scuba diving. If you go down to 100 feet, you're going to absorb more
than at you are at 5 feet.
So if some guy says, I really want to oxygenate my wort, like how I just say some guy, not me, and leaves that sucker on for 5 minutes.
It's just wasteful at that point.
Yeah. Right.
Okay. Do it for a minute. Swirl around as you're doing it.
Yeah.
Do it again. I do it again in 4 hours if I'm not sleeping. At 12 hours, if it's already fermenting, don't do it again.
Right. The 12-hour blast, if you're doing a high-gravity beer, if you're doing a barley wine or something like that, you can go ahead and do it. But if you've got, healthy yeast and you've, provide a healthy environment and you've given them oxygen to start with, they're going to be fine all the way through to the end of the beer. I think a lot of times people are just not taking care of the yeast to start with, and so a short blast at 12 hours is not too bad.
But better at like 7 or 8 hours, something like that. Just before it starts to ferment, you don't really want to do it after that. But another blast is you're going to have off gassing, so you're going to lose a lot of what you put in there over the next 3 or 4 hours. So another blast at 3, 4, 6 hours isn't a bad thing, and I've seen a lot of positive things when I do it there.
But 12 hours?
Well, if it's like you said, if it's a big beer that maybe hasn't started fermenting yet, or if it's a big beer like a barley wine that's just started fermenting, go ahead and do it again, because you're not going to, with a big, thick, heavy wort, you're not going to get the kind of oxygen going in there that you really want to have.
Do I need to move that thing around? Like I'm putting the hose down in the bottom, and I've got the stone also, but I just leave it there for, say, the 2 minutes, right? I don't need to be shaking the thing around.
You can't regulate it either.
I move it around.
You can't regulate it.
I have a wand, so if I'm using my carboy,
it's showing us his wand.
Well, yeah, you said hose. But I swirl it around just to give it more contact time.
Okay. With it. I move mine around as well.
You do.
Because the bubbles are passing up through the liquid.
Yeah.
If you can get it to where the liquid is kind of rolling over and rotating throughout the carboy, that's
when
that's a good amount of pressure.
I'm oxygenating my starter in the Erlenmeyer, I actually swirl the Erlenmeyer so the bubbles are swirling around at the same time.
You guys oxygenate your starter too?
I don't.
Neither do I.
But it's
if you use a stir plate,
I don't. My stir plate broke, so I can't.
Stir plate, you get that vortex. And
right.
Yeah. But I pulling air through. So
my stir plate broke.
So you had to oxygenate.
I do.
You're such a brew dork, Doc.
Now,
can't believe you oxygenate your starter.
Since you can't regulate oxygen.
I usually have my big brews.
Okay.
On my big brews, unless my smaller ones, and usually I'm doing starters late at night. I'm tired.
Yeah.
I don't.
But if you're going to buy a oxygenation system from your local homebrew shop, is like a good rule of thumb, just wait till your top of your wort's covered with like a white film, or that's about 1 to 2 minutes.
Yeah, white film plus
over when the foam's about to hit over the top.
Okay.
A minute or two.
When the foam's going over the top of the
stop.
Stop. If you do a minute, again, you're doing better than most homebrewers. If you do 2 minutes, you're still okay. If 3 or 4, that's probably just wasteful.
And you can just shake it. You can just use a aquarium pump.
Yeah.
But again,
things I don't like about any of those shaking.
But you have to shake for a long time. Though.
You've got to shake for a long time.
You don't have sterile air either.
You don't have sterile air. Even if you an aquarium pump. Air. I didn't do that.
You want to filter that? Yeah.
It's only 20% air, 20% oxygen in the air. So You got a lot more shaking. You got a lot more pumping to do.
That's okay, but just break down the price of a couple of batches of beer. It makes a serious difference.
And for a lot of us, the brew day is so long.
Yeah.
What do you want to sit there for 25 minutes or an hour doing this oxygen pump, or do you just want to do 30 seconds or a minute and get it done?
If you're not going to use pure O2 and you're going to use natural aeration, couldn't you say you could do it natural aeration for 12 hours nonstop through a 2-micron stone?
Sure.
Because you're not going to over-oxygenate with a 2-micron. If anything, you'll treat it like your beer and wort as a giant starter at that point.
I don't know how, when I do batches though, if I tried to bubble something for 12 hours, maybe it's just the worts I make, but they'd be bubbling out through the top and all over the floor.
It's still, for me, everything starts to foam.
Right.
Yeah. With an oxygenating stone, it starts to foam a lot. Whether it's air or oxygen, I gotta stop after 2 minutes anyway. Yeah. So there's not much I can do.
Yeah, I can get a minute, 2 minutes, and then I need to stop.
You gotta stop. Mm-hmm. I usually brew during the day. I get it down to, I pitch cold, so I get it down to brew temperature, and by that time, I'm ready to go to bed. So I oxygenate then, I pitch, I go to bed. Before I go to work in the morning, I come back out, sanitize the cane, stick it back in there, and I do another 30 seconds. By the time I come home at lunch, and when I come after work, it's bubbling, it's going, and I don't have to do it again.
All right, we'll follow up right when we come back from the break with a question about starters the day of or the night before too. I think that's a good topic, and then John's got a lot more. So a real quick break. It's going to be a long one, guys. Sorry about you East Coasters, but it's good info, and that's why we're doing it. Have another beer. Have yourself a pee at this point.
Yeah.
And we'll be right back. It's the Brewing Network, and we just announced that the Jamil show is coming in January. We did that, so don't forget. We're excited about it. So stay tuned. We'll be right back with a lot more questions from the forum, from the chat users, and also from John himself. We'll be back. The Brewing Network.
Coming in January, the Brewing Network is proud to present the Beer Style Show. Hosted by the most award-winning homebrewer ever, Jamil Zainasheff. Each show will give you the best in understanding BJCP style guidelines.
You gotta honestly look at it, try it, and evaluate it and say, no, it's actually, a better beer in this style. And that's, again, goes to, understand the BJCP style guide.
Competition advice.
One of the things in competition that you have to do is you have to brew a good beer, a really good beer. So the bigger the competition, the better beer you have to brew as a base.
Experienced homebrew tips.
One of the things about process, a lot of these beers, mash temp is a difference of just a few degrees one way or another, but it makes, a dramatically different beer.
The science behind the process.
What you want to pitch is 1 million cells per milliliter of wort per degree Plato.
And brewcaster John co-hosting is sure to keep Jamil on his toes.
Because I believe that you need temperatures to help grow you.
I think John, you could make even better beer.
It's on, Jamil.
The Beer Style Show with Jamil Zainasheff and John Plissé. Coming to the Brewing Network in 2006. Stay tuned to www.thebrewingnetwork.com for details. You're listening to Three Guys.
Excuse me, what about me?
Sorry. You're listening to Three Guys and One Girl use a radio show as an excuse to drink more beer. The Brewcasters on the Brewing Network.
Tons of questions to get to, folks. We'll try to keep it moving as it's getting late. Let me follow up with what about, although I think that's what we were talking about. What about inline O2 aeration?
Yeah,
it's the same thing.
Regulator. It's just a different way.
Just depends on how fast the bubbles are going in. Commercial brewers do that.
I've done it. I've had a couple of them. And if you push the O2 too hard, your flow rate will cut down, and your pump can't overcome it.
Right.
So you got to regulate both of them. It's just a different way to do it.
Okay.
And the flow rate will cut down with how much O2 you push.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
To the point it will back up your pump.
This person says, I made a 2-liter starter for an IPA on the morning of brew day. And by the time I was ready to pitch, there was little to no starter activity. It was about 6 hours later. Did I short my yeast count? It seemed to be fermenting fine, but could it have been better? And I think we've had this discussion. Jamil and I both like to do the starter the morning of. But it's a matter of whether or not the time between you start that and the time that you pitch is going to be when that starter is active. And I think you probably be better than me to tell people when that thing is active. And his started fermenting anyway, so I think it's okay. He wants to know if it could have been better. I'm thinking he said 6 hours. I usually get mine going in about 6 hours. It's moving in there, but maybe something else could have caused that it wasn't.
Depends on the health of the yeast as well.
Yeah.
Before you put it in, and you can always do the night before as well.
It'll ferment. I mean, if you pitch this the 1 tube or 1 smack pack, it'll still ferment. It's just we're trying to make it better.
Right, you end up with off flavors and not as great an attenuation. So it's going to end up a little sweeter.
What is attenuation?
Attenuation is the amount of a percentage of sugars that are converted to CO2 and alcohol from the original wort. So different yeasts will have different levels of attenuation.
So the more attenuation, the better the ferment, or the more complete.
Right. Well, certain wort and certain yeast, you should get a certain attenuation. What you want is it to be consistent. So, if you're trying to make the best beer possible, you need to know what certain wort is going to give you with a certain yeast at a certain temperature. You need to be able to learn that sort of thing so you can say, well, I want the beer drier or I want the beer sweeter. How do I achieve that? You need to be able to consistently do it. And once you can, then you can change your process to get yourself exactly what you're looking for.
Right. We're here with Jamil Zainasheff, if you're just tuning in, who has signed aboard with the Brewing Network to do his own show coming in January. John's going to be helping him out, so Mondays for that. Stay tuned to the Brewing Network. Also, join us in the chat room. I think everyone just got kicked out at a moment. We reached our peak there. We're going to have to upgrade our server. I think I've been trying to find loopholes around doing that because it becomes a little more expensive. Actually becomes a lot more expensive when we switch servers. But I'm paying attention, guys. I know you're getting kicked out of there, and I'm real sorry about that. I don't like it either. So I think John and I might bite the bullet this week and go ahead and upgrade the server.
Ask for a raise.
Yeah.
Bite another bullet.
I thought I had fixed it, actually. So I was working on it throughout the week. I was on the phone with those people, but those people
it's a good problem.
Didn't do very good. So anyway, I'm working on it, guys. We might just upgrade this week and see if that can fix it, okay? Hey, what's the best way to store yeast long term, like more than a year?
You'd have to have absolute zero,
It's to be perfect yeast.
Cryogenically store the yeast. For the home brewer, the thing you probably would do is make slants.
Gotta be the slants.
Put these and then cover it with a light mineral oil to keep the slant from drying out, and that'll get you about a year.
Where do you get things to make a slant? What is a slant? Where do you get it?
Test tube, wort with agar, and you let it solidify on a slant at an angle, and then that gives you more surface area to streak out your yeast.
It's like a petri dish, but in a test tube form.
Test tube, okay.
And those will tend to have longer life in the refrigerator. You can pull some off of there and make a new slant every once in a while, and that will actually lengthen the whole time you can have them in there.
If you're doing petri dishes, seal them with get yourself some electrical tape or whatever and seal the petri dish, and they'll last longer.
Okay.
The reason slants last longer is because they're sealed screw cap test tubes.
Okay.
And if you just do a turnover with your slant, make a new slant,
that
will help.
Is this homebrew shop stuff, or you got to go to Science Shop?
Sure.
Yeah.
You can get a number of them.
Does B3 still have slants?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
We do.
So they have slants and petri dishes.
If you're going to get into it, I'd make your own.
You can make your own agar. So
I take a microbiology course at your junior college.
That'll get
you steal a bunch of equipment.
Yeah, steal equipment, use for facilities.
But just learning how to do slants and sterile loop.
It's pretty easy. A couple of good books out there. A couple of good websites.
Okay. A few questions here about over pitching, which
It's a big sphere out there, isn't it?
Some circles say that's a myth. But they basically say they want to know if you've ever overpitched and how hard is it to overpitch, and what if you use the same yeast cake? Can you know?
I've overpitched on purpose, and it's the thing is, if you reuse the entire yeast cake every time, you're carrying over a lot of crud in the yeast cake, which isn't good. And the problem with overpitching is multiple. One is a lot of the character of beer comes when the yeast are growing. When yeast are growing, I've heard anywhere from 3 times to 10 or 20 times more alcohol is produced during that rate than anything else. So with the repitching, one of the issues is those yeasts that are just kind of laying around in there, and the yeasts that are already on their last legs, they're going to start dumping out, fatty acids and a lot of stuff that are going to make your beer, as you get oxygen in it and as it ages, it's going to go in the crapper a lot faster.
What's that taste like?
If you want beer that are
soapy,
and also the cardboardy,
soapy kind of stuff,
the stale flavors. I brought in beers here that are 4 or 5 years old, and they taste great. And why do they taste great? Because they didn't have a lot of that in it. You need to. There's a reason why the yeast need to grow to maintain their health. And if you're just repitching that same amount, any yeast that's already on its last legs is going to italysize sooner. Just not the thing to do. It's easy enough to just swirl the carboy, get yourself a sanitized container, pour it out. You can do it the day of. Instead of reusing the same carboy, get yourself a second carboy.
Yeah.
Pour out the yeast, swirl it with some clean water, and decant off the proper amount you need.
Okay.
And again, pitching calculator will show you how much to use.
That yeast cake, they're not all front runners by any means.
Right.
And when you keep using the same yeast cake over and over, it's going to get a bigger or higher percentage of the slow guys, the dead guys.
Yeah.
And you're going to get what he's saying. It's going to dump things into your next beer that you don't really want there, at least for longevity.
It's like my graduating class entering the job force. You don't want most of us idiots. I'll tell you that right now. There was only a few up there, myself excluded.
You were
that you want to. Yeah,
that's why you're in here with us.
Yeah, that's why I'm here. God, how long ago should I?
What is autolysis or autolysize? What did you mean by that?
That's when the yeast start kind of like a self-consumption. They break down and start eating up all the amino acids and fatty acids that their brethren as they start to give up the ghost, and it's kind of a chain reaction thing.
Kind of a cannibalizing kind of thing. Yeah. But basically the cell wall breaks and all their guts come out, and you really don't want that into the solution in general.
Is that because there's no more sugar left, or?
No, it has to do with the dead guys, and they're not viable anymore. And we always talk about the yeast cell wall. Mm-hmm. Having a healthy yeast cell wall. If it's too, like he said, if it's too leathery, they can't get stuff in and out. That's how they work. They pull stuff in through the cell wall, through lots of different mechanisms. They process it, and they shove it back out. If, say you're stressing them, going too hot too fast or too cold too fast, they put up protein coats, and you can't get in and out. You don't have the in and out privilege. It's kind of like that 21 Club.
Right.
And so you can't get in and out. When you end up dying, the cell wall will split, and all the guts, all the enzymes, all the fatty acids, all the cool stuff that's on the inside, as long as it stays on the inside, is fine. But when it starts getting out into the solution in general, it comes across into the finished beer. And then it starts making nasty things later on.
Sounds good.
Burnt rubber.
Yeah,
flavors.
There's things.
Like
as long as it stays trapped up in that yeast cell, it's cool. And the healthy ones will do that. But when you start pitching dead yeast,
soy saucy sometimes.
Yeah, soy. Like a silkiness on your tongue or some sort, or
it's more of a flavor aroma.
Yeah, it's cheesy, kind of catty. It's weird. It's.
Neither one of those are good.
No. And it's not good.
Cheesy and catty is not nice.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. John, I know you got stuff there too.
It's all right.
Is it okay? Because I got a mass of forum questions.
Well, I'll tell you what. We're going to have a part 4.
Yeah. Well, and you're going to get this out of the Jamil, the beer style show too.
It's all right.
So
John and I were talking, and he had some good questions that
He did, and I know you got them there. So I want to mix them both in. I'm just giving you guys warning. I got a mass of forum questions here too.
Unlike last week.
Go ahead and do one.
You want me to keep going?
Do a forum one, and also I'll get on the forum and answer those that we don't cover on the show.
Here's one that should be fairly easy, and John, you can chime in too. This one says, I brewed the B3 barley wine partial extract kit last year with the suggested WLP001 yeast, and it ended up about 10% alcohol by volume, slight sweetness, and now after aging, it's a great beer. He sees now that the B3 suggests using WLP007 with that kit. And he would like to hear what Jamil has to say about the two yeasts in comparison, what flavor, lack of, we can expect, and what other high attenuating yeast Jamil might suggest using, and any yeast ferment technique tips you may have on the subject of fermenting strong ales.
Okay, so we got an hour.
Just try to keep them short.
All right, the thing is, the 007 is the dry English ale yeast. It is the same as the same kind of flavor profile as the 002, the English ale yeast. Okay, the 07 ferments about the same attenuation as California ale yeast, the 001. So the attenuation's the same.
Okay.
What you're going to get different out of 07 than you do out of 01 is you're going to get more estery, fruity character.
Okay.
So if the B3 barley wine kit that he's referring to is like an English barley wine kit, then I'd say, yeah, the 07 it'll give you kind of a British character to it. If you're going to use the 001, you're going to get a very clean beer that's going to be more, American in nature. So, that's the difference. The attenuation, the upper limit on attenuation on both of those is like, 80%. California ale yeast is like 73 to 80, and, dry ale yeast is like 70 to 80. So they're very similar in that fact. It's just the esters.
But there's things you have to do to make sure you got, like you said, healthy yeast and everything. When you get a beer that big, you want big pitch, a lot of things to make sure it's going to finish on out. Because you won't get your 73% attenuation if you just don't treat them right.
Well, can't the yeast be overwhelmed by the amount of sugars in solution? I mean,
sure.
If you did one vial of yeast without doing a starter, wouldn't they just kind of be like, well, there's too much here?
Yeah, they have a name for it when you toss in yeast to high osmotic sugar content. They where some of the yeast just don't do anything; they just drop to the bottom.
Shrivel up and die.
And I can't think of the name of it. Yeah, the shrivel up and die syndrome. As Scott reminds me. So again, it becomes more important to pitch, appropriate amount. That's why as the gravity goes up, you got to pitch, a lot more.
You got more in John's list there you want to do? You want me to do another forum one?
Do forum, go for it.
Okay.
I got more, but keep going.
We've got so much to cover.
I thought this one was really good.
What was that?
I think I know the answer to this, and it's a quick one. That's why I'll
Wait,
ask it.
Really?
It's an easy one.
Ask it to yourself.
I've heard Jamil say it.
Oh.
It's to Jamil. In your opinion, what's the cleanest fermenting ale yeast?
Actually, I saw that on the forums, and I was thinking about it, and it's not. I would say, generally California ale yeast, but if you include like the Kolsch yeast or a German alt yeast as ale yeasts, then those are pretty clean also. The cleanest yeast is probably a lager yeast. And it depends on your definition of clean. So sulfurs, DMS, esters, what are you trying to avoid by clean? I'd say California ale yeast is probably going to be the Canadian ale yeasts are pretty clean.
Probably the same thing. Canadians are like Californians in the sense that we're real liberal sissies. Yeah. You know what I mean?
It's all how you treat them, too. Yeah. Temperature, stress, lots of stuff.
Although I think what we've said in here is that the Cal, you can do a lot of bad treatment to the Cal ale yeast and still end up with a good beer.
If you only had one yeast, it would be California ale yeast.
Yeah.
It's a workhorse.
This person is having a bad time with chill haze. Doesn't bother him necessarily, but in some cases he understands it's not accepted. Are there any quick and dirty ways to reduce it? He doesn't really want to cold filter. So,
process again is probably the important part. So, attention to ingredients, attention to the boil, use whirlflock, or if you're using Irish moss, a half teaspoon is not going to do it. In 5 gallons, you want more like 2 teaspoons, 2.5 teaspoons.
Okay.
Does it go away after it's warmed up, or?
Yeah, because what happens is when it gets cold, things start to glom together, and you start to see it. And then when it warms up, they all disperse again, so you don't see it.
If you keep it cold, 32 degrees, just above freezing, for a year, it'll be brilliant.
It'll eventually drop.
Eventually,
out.
Don't move it.
Who's keeping beer besides you?
Eventually,
for a year, besides you and John over there.
One hint about Irish moss is I used to, when I first started, I would just take my half teaspoon or teaspoon, throw it in.
Yeah.
Hydrate it first. Put it in a cup of water.
Okay.
And let it hydrate while you're brewing for the first 45 minutes, and then dump the whole thing in there.
Just buy whirlflock.
That's what I use now. I use
whirlflock now.
These guys, I know Doc buys whirlflock, but it's like 25 cents for a 5-gallon batch. And people say, "Oh, I can't." Why would I do that? And it's like it's a quarter, dude.
Yeah,
5 gallons of really good beer. It's a quarter.
And let's face it, the American dollar's not that strong right now anyway. So 25 cents is less than it ever was.
Yeah. And how many times have I rehydrated my Irish moss and finished up my boil and finished up everything? I'm looking at,
sitting there. Yeah,
it's still sitting there.
Yeah. What's your time worth?
What about if the beer haze doesn't go away when it warms up? What causes that?
Well, that would be a permanent haze.
That's a different haze.
But where does that come from?
It's the proteins and tannins.
And that occurs during
mash? From the grains, from the...
There's a lot of different issues
hops,
on that one.
It's a reason why a super hoppy beer is hazy. You get a lot of tannins and polyphenols and stuff in the
tannins from hops.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah,
from the stems themselves, or just
hop material.
Oh, weird.
Question for all three you jokers from the forum here. I like this question too. It's a good one. In reference to the carbonation charts on pages 54 and 55 of the most recent Zymergy. This chart lists Belgian ales, double, triple, strong, strong dark, strong pale, having low to moderate carbonation.
I saw that.
He says
I find looked at it. Yeah.
He says I find that most Belgian ales have strong carbonation, which I think is true also. Although I didn't read the chart. Is my perception wrong, or is this an error that has been propagated through many channels?
Well, that chart lists those specific styles is going from like 1.9 to 2.4.
Okay.
2.4 is a pretty healthy carbonation.
Is it?
I thought the chart was actually pretty good.
Okay.
I could quibble a little bit with, the lower end, upper end, but, the guy who did it, he took, those numbers from a variety of sources. And I think he's pretty well on.
It did raise my eyebrows though too. I just barely had enough time to glance through that, and I thought, that's not what I've read before, and that's not what I've seen before.
But he had some of the other Belgian beers up at, 4, 4.5, and, I thought it was a pretty respectable piece. I thought, you could argue a little bit, but, there also, I've had, plenty of triples and doubles and, especially in the strongs that, the strongs are the part that I would say maybe, it wasn't quite as accurate. I would list the strongs as going higher, especially the Goldens. But I've had plenty that are down, probably less than 1.9, so I could say either way.
I really think with the strongs, like you were talking about, if they're lower in carbonation, they just kind of lay in your tongue, and you really need them to...
It doesn't dry them out as much, and they end up too sweet.
They end up too sweet, lays on your tongue, it doesn't flow back, and when you boost it just a couple... of volume or a couple tenths of volume, it will just makes a whole different beer.
Right.
Really does.
The thing to do is to go ahead and brew it, do it, and if it's not quite right, especially the beauty of kegging, and just dial it up until you feel it's perfect. And that's all that matters.
Actually, it's a little bit perfect plus, and then bottle it.
Caller, you're on the air.
Hey, Justin.
Yes, sir. Who are we talking
Rob,
to?
Two Dog Ale.
Hey, Rob.
How are you?
Good, thanks.
Hey, I just wanted to ask before I fall asleep.
Fair enough.
Or pass out.
I'm on the East Coast, so
okay.
it's late.
Fair enough.
But I'm, we're starting to get our first snow flurries here, so it's starting to get a little cool.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. But I'm thinking, it makes me think about lagering, especially after watching that Modern Marvels. They were talking about how I used to lager in caves.
Yeah. Man, did you record that?
I did record it. I can't figure out how to get it off my DVR.
When you figure it out, you let me know, because I'm so bummed I missed that episode.
I'll get it to you, and I also put a little a tag out on Netflix.
Oh, cool.
Because they rent those, or they have those for rent sometimes too.
Oh, nice. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so if I hear it's out there, I'll let you know.
Real quick, if y'all don't know, Modern Marvels, which does like the history of everything. I watched the history of paint on there one day.
Building big bridges that can't be built.
I'm just that kind of dork. But they did a history of brewing just the other night. Unfortunately, it aired at like 2 a.m. And for some reason I wasn't up at that hour.
I don't believe that.
And I just barely didn't make it. It was like one off night. Anyway, go ahead, your question.
Well, I don't have a setup to do lagering, to be honest with you. That's why I was thinking about doing it now. And I was first of all, I was wondering, what's like the coldest, or what should be like the actual fermenting temperature for a lager? And then also, what about the cold conditioning part of it? How cold can you do that?
Yeah, good question. What's the bottom end? I think
for fermenting.
Yeah, before you're killing everything.
Well, you're not killing it. The lager yeast will survive at 32 degrees. How active they'll be is another question. So, myself and Dan Gordon, but not John, agree that the best temperature to ferment a lager at is, you pitch your yeast around 44 degrees Fahrenheit, and let it warm up to about 48, and ferment there at 48. You'll make the cleanest lagers. You can pitch warm, 60 degrees, 65 degrees, and bring that down into the 50. 55 degrees. You can make a pretty decent lager around 55 degrees. For me, I'm always looking for the ideal, but you make a pretty darn fine lager around 55 degrees.
Okay, but if it's snowing out there, it's a lot colder than 55 degrees, so he can't leave this thing on his back porch, can he?
Well, you can do it.
It'll take longer.
What I
It'll work.
do sometimes when I run out of space is, I put the carboy outside.
Yeah.
I stay up till 3 in the morning. I check it, and I bring it back inside. I put it.
Really?
So, I've done that in the past, but it's much easier to just get yourself a fridge. What kind of temperature are you working at?
Yeah, right.
What kind of temperature are you working at?
Well, it'll all depend. That's the other thing too, is the stability of temperature. Basically, I was thinking about not outside, but I have a garage that's not heated.
Oh, okay.
And,
a little warmer.
Yeah, it's always a little bit warmer in there. Not much, but it's a little bit warmer in there.
Yeah.
So I was figuring maybe in there with some blankets or something, but to try to keep the temperature stable.
And I'll bet you you'll have a wall that's up against the house in your garage.
Yeah.
Okay, that wall is much warmer than the other walls.
I'm sure in my house it is.
And
most
so,
of my heat goes out.
you put a little box up against that, and you'll be set.
Some blankets up against the wall.
Truly, one of the most important things is that the temperature is stable. The more, especially in lagers, keep a stable temperature. It makes a big difference.
Yeah, they don't like going up and down at all. So if you can keep it stable,
you get yourself a fridge and a controller, and I know it hurts to.
It does, because I've not done it either. It does hurt.
Once you do, it's so easy to do any beer you want at any time and not even think about it. It's just like, oh yeah, just put in here and dial in a number and off I go. And boy, the beer's so good, and you'll be happy in the long run.
You'll sleep better.
Let me go wake up my wife, Jamil, and you can tell her that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. All you got to do is go without dinner for a week with the family, and you got yourself a fridge.
Just forward her on to my wife, and she'll tell you that just give up. He's lost.
Yeah, stop fighting it, right? What about maybe you could throw a space heater in that garage too if it was still too cold and you had it up against your wall? Maybe just a little space heater.
Firm wrap. Get yourself a firm wrap and a controller. The controllers are a little expensive, but the firm wraps are pretty cheap. And you tape it to the outside of the carboy, and
you don't have to tape it all the way around either.
You plug it in. If it's even just freezing or above out there, it'll be fine.
In fact, John uses that and a refrigerator.
I do.
So
it'll still ferment. You can get down in 37 Or
You can-
It'll take a long
it'll
time,
take a
but
long
it'll be
time.
okay.
It'll be
How long
okay.
is a long time?
3 weeks or 4 weeks, probably.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, that's nothing.
You can use an electric blanket
Yeah,
too.
it might be more
Oh,
like
there
2
you go.
months.
If it's still too cold,
It'll
put
put
it
it
on
on
your
the base.
blanket.
Heat rises, put it on the base.
Yeah.
Recarboy.
It'll take 2 months.
Yeah.
2 months.
I'm going to try it.
Yeah.
I'm going to try it. I'm going to try to go like old school here and try to do it like I'm in a cave. So
I like that.
see what happens.
That's cool.
I just want. I don't want to tie all of your time up. I just want to
Sorry.
ask one question. I'm relatively new. I'm like 4 batches in.
Oh, cool.
I'm doing extract brewing right now with specialty grains. I don't taste anything bad in the extra. It's the best beer I've ever had. You know.
That's good work.
Great.
That keeps you brewing.
And so, what's that?
That keeps you brewing.
Yeah, and I go out every once in a while and I have to try some stuff on tap that I would have never tried before because I'm thinking of what would I brew next, so which is kind of fun too. But what I want to ask is, like, what's like the next? Like, I've made a few batches. I understand, I'm not doing full boils yet. I'm adding the water. I still like it.
Yeah, me too.
I'm doing yeast starters now.
Good.
And so, like, but what's a good next step to make like my extract brew that much better?
Mini mash.
No, I wouldn't even go mini mash. I'd stick with steeping, but I'd go full boil.
Steeping grains
boil.
and full boil.
All right.
Just break
I didn't
down.
even go
But
full boil yet.
he's already going steeping grains, right?
No, I just said extract. Do you steep?
Well, I steep the
He's
do
using
the tea.
grains.
Okay, yeah. Go to. You know what?
I'd go
Christmas is coming up. What do you want for it?
Full wort boil would be my
You
next
wanna
step.
have- yeah,
and
you
then,
wanna have a
See,
big brew
I
kettle.
agree with
And
the
I would
with
go
the
with the immersion chiller.
I agree with the full boil, but here's what happens, and here's what's kept me from going full boil. Right now, you got to get a bigger kettle or convert a keg into it. You got to buy the standalone burner so that you can get it to a boil because most stoves aren't going to do 10 gallons to a boil, and you got to get the chiller.
5 gallons.
So you're talking
6 gallons.
even a full 5 gallons. You're needing usually. I know my stove. I got a pretty good gas stove, and it won't boil a full 5 gallons. So I would have to get a standalone, a bigger kettle, and a wort chiller. So you're talking 3 pieces of equipment, which
for better beer.
And I agree, and I want the better beer, and I'm not arguing that it's not a great step. I'm just saying that. Just to move to mini mash, it's nothing. You got all the stuff sitting right there in your kitchen.
Yeah, but I don't think
and
it'll
if
make
you're
the
not ready
impact.
to spend another, you're talking another $100
But
at
I
least.
think the mini mash won't make the impact.
But
that
you
the
still
full
have to go to
boil
full
and
wort boil soon.
And the
I
chiller
agree,
will make.
and I want to
See,
do the same, but I don't
but-
have $100 to spend on it right now.
Exactly.
It's
I'm with you.
Christmas is coming up.
I know, but you know what? I'll tell you what, the pennies are going elsewhere, especially at Christmas time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So even an extra
Daniela
100
doesn't need a gift.
And actually, let me point this out. True.
You're not buying it for yourself. She's getting it for you because she loves you so much and she wants you to give it.
I've gotten.
There's number 2.
I've gotten emails about this before because we sometimes do this in here, and it's easier for some to say than others. Oh, just buy the equipment; it's worth it. Buy it because it's worth the beer. Buy it. Some homebrewers out there, and like I said, they've let me know in emails. They're like, "Hey, you know what? I'm doing with what I got, and it's all I got. And if I could throw the $100 down on something else, believe me, I would." But I just can't. This is my hobby. It's every extra penny I got. So I'm just saying, in those instances where you don't even have an extra $50 or whatever to throw down, there are small things that you can do that at least makes it more creative and a little more fun.
Sure.
And for me, that was going to mini mash. Maybe it wasn't the biggest difference in the world on my beer, but it was a lot more fun because it was an extra step and I got to experience the mash process.
That's true, and it also prepares you if you want to go all grain later. It kind of gives you a hint of what all grain's like.
A heads up.
Yeah.
And-
No, that's a very good point.
And I guess all I'm really saying is we got to be careful when we say, "Oh, hey, it's worth it because the beer's better," because no one's arguing whether or not it's worth it. But really, some people don't even have another $100.
That's true.
Well,
I would.
let's not
And
say you
again-
got to go out and buy it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Get the mayonnaise jar. Put the buck in every week or
Yeah.
whatever it takes to get it up there. You don't have to do it right away, but we're talking about what's going to make the biggest impact.
It's a huge
And
impact.
you're right.
It's a big impact. Work up towards that. I didn't start out with a brewing sculpture. I started out with buckets. Then
Yeah.
I went to 3 buckets. Then I went to 3 buckets with sawhorses.
Yeah.
And I finally bought a big kettle.
Yeah.
Then I morphed that kettle into having things welded onto that one, and I just moved up and moved up and moved up.
Remember,
slowly.
I was saying stick with extract, don't go to all grain.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Save that money for more ingredients to brew more batches.
Right.
You'll do better brewing more batches or buying more yeast than you will.
So
going
Jamil, you were saying full boil though was like a good step to go.
That's a big step.
It'll make a big impact, and some people's stoves.
And make yourself an immersion chiller. Get yourself a coil of copper somewhere.
Some people's
stoves.
They can make them.
I snuck that in.
Yeah, some people's stoves. Well, what I started doing was I would fit on 2 burners. And it did really help.
Yeah, mine's not going to fit on 2 burners. What did you sneak in? Sorry, buddy.
Well, tonight I had to make a trip to Home Depot for something for the house, and so I ended up with a roll of copper and stuff.
Nice, well, if you got a Costco or one of those types of places around there, this time of year they have turkey fryers with the burner.
Those are cheap.
And you can get it, and it's aluminum pot. It's fine.
Don't worry about the aluminum.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talk about should I do it in an aluminum pot.
You can do a full wort boil on a burner outside, and you'll be surprised. It's usually
$70.
Yeah.
I looked at it. It was
that's
$7
a burner
at the
and
Home
pot.
Depot.
That's a burner and a pot. It doesn't have to be a stainless steel pot.
And you could always get a stainless steel pot later if you wanted. But I don't think it's really that necessary.
That's a big controversy too. It used to always be no way, no how, no aluminum, and now it's like it's really not making that big a difference.
Hey, Jamil's got a shirt to give away to you for calling in and having a good time with us.
Hey, cool.
Thanks.
Send me an email. You know the drill. It's Justin at the Brewing Network. Just give me your name, tell us you were the caller, and give me your address. We'll send you a Sierra Nevada wheat beer shirt.
Ah, cool.
So, courtesy of Jamil Zainasheff.
Thank you. Thank you, Jamil. I just want to thank you guys too for the show. It's been really great. It's really helped me out a lot. And and Justin, last week, I'm guilty. One of those people that were slamming you. But I mean, I know how you feel because I hear a lot. I almost like once a week somebody saying, you could be gay.
It's nice to know that someone else is out there.
I don't think my wife means it though.
Did you ever see that skit on Saturday Night Live? It used to be with Dana Carvey, and it was called Lyle the Effeminate Heterosexual. And basically his birthday would come around, and even his wife and daughter would buy him like male strippers for his birthday. That was the joke, and he's like, "What are you talking about? I'm not gay." Hey, thanks for your support. I appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Catch you later.
Bye-bye.
All right, that's cool.
We're ready to get our gay joke in there.
I appreciate that. John, you got more questions here you want to throw out?
Well, one question for Jamil, and I think it'd be a good talk for him. You talk about leaving your beer fermenting for longer periods of time. If you don't do that, if you're going to do an ale or lager and you were to do a less amount of ferment time, what are the effects and what are the potential off flavors that you might get from doing like a 7-week ale or a 2-week lager? Are there any off flavors or any type of aromas that might be produced that you might not want? And why do you leave your beer on your fermentation?
So are you saying if you do happen to leave it in there a shorter amount of time, then
what's going to be produced? What happens? Yeah. I mean, why do you do that?
Well, I think one of the things we had talked about earlier was why I don't do secondary fermentation. Why don't I pull the beer off the yeast early, at 1 week? Everybody says, your primary's over in 1 week, and what happens is the yeast, they have that initial phase where they, they're working on the cell walls, and then they go into the growth phase, and they're fermenting, and they're converting the sugars over to alcohol and CO2, and they're also producing a lot of other intermediate compounds and stuff. For example, acetaldehyde is one of the things you and I had been talking about earlier. And, acetaldehyde is like that green apple or fresh cut pumpkin kind of aroma that you'll find in some beers. Budweiser is supposed to be one of the named beers that has a lot of acetaldehyde. What acetaldehyde is, it's an intermediate step on the way to ethanol. Okay. And the yeast, so they produce a ton of acetaldehyde, and if you do not let the yeast finish up what they're doing, if you pull the beer off the yeast, you can end up with that green apple flavor. That's one of the reasons that I stopped doing secondaries, because I was following the rule that everybody told you, you need to do this number of days and then move it. And everyone was telling me I had a green apple beer. Well, I just stopped doing that and lo and behold, after just letting the yeast sit with the beer, it converts the rest of that acetaldehyde over to ethanol, and you don't have that green apple issue anymore. Another one is dimethyl sulfide was the other one you were asking about. DMS, dimethyl sulfide. It comes really from the malt. So, a lower kiln malt tends to have more DMS and more DMS precursor, SMM, methanine or whatever. Methionine, and so it's formed during the germination and the kilning. If they kiln it high enough, it converts over to DMS. Once it gets in your boil, DMS blows off pretty quickly and easily. The thing is, grains with a high precursor content, it gets converted in the boil. You can get DMS production from yeast, but it's very minor in the overall scope of things. So DMS in the boil, you boil real hard, it drives it off. The half-life of DMS is about 40 minutes. So a 90-minute boil, they say a 100-minute boil is ideal for driving off the maximum amount of DMS, but a 90-minute boil is pretty much ideal for getting rid of DMS if you're doing all grain.
Is that for lagers, though?
Anything with a light Pilsner malt base.
Pilsner malt, 6-row malt has more DMS precursors in it. What happens is you're boiling that off during the boil. The more you boil off, the better off you are. There's still going to be DMS precursors, SMM, in the wort when you're done boiling. The major production of DMS comes when you let your wort sit hot. So if you don't have a chiller, what happens is, as long as that wort's sitting there above and not boiling, as long as it's not boiling,
not boiling off, making steam,
and it's above 140 degrees, you're producing DMS out of the SMM. And whatever you produce in there, most of it's going to go into it's all going to go into the wort, and it's going to be in the beer. A good healthy fermentation will scrub some of that out, but at the end of fermentation, when you're no longer blowing off CO2, people believe you can lager a beer for a long time and get rid of DMS. You can't. DMS needs to be scrubbed out by CO2.
Just evaporates off.
Or a boil.
It's going to be pushed out. The yeast don't reabsorb it. The yeast don't, so that's one of the issues.
What is SMM?
Well, SMM is a precursor. It's what DMS is made from.
Okay.
And it's mostly made when you're malting your barley. But when you malt at a higher temperature, like
the
2-row
produces it.
Yeah, 2-row or Munich or pale ale malt, you don't get as much because it's driven off and it's killed off. And
if they dry the malt hotter, over 140 degrees Fahrenheit, that'll drive some of it off.
Okay.
Well, they get oxidized though to DMSO.
Yeah.
And the sulfoxide. The problem is that can get converted back to DMS in your beer. But the thing to note about this piece of DMS is, we didn't talk about, Justin didn't ask us what the hell's DMS.
Yeah, my bad.
It's that
started into that
cabbagey, cooked vegetable kind of, cooked corn kind of thing that we noticed in the Heineken.
Yeah.
Because they use a real pale Pilsner malt that has a lot of DMS precursor and DMS.
This is the problem with me learning things on this show, is that I stop asking dumb questions.
And we just start right in.
The way where you get the most DMS in your beer, the major factor is you're not chilling your beer fast enough or your wort fast enough from boiling to below 140. So
if you start out already with a lot of SMM in there from like a Pilsner malt or whatever, and what he's saying,
kiln malts, the Munich or English pales won't have very much.
And what he said, he's pushed it by at least 4 times tonight about having a chiller.
Right. But does the cold break actually drop that out?
It's not that. It's the matter that your wort is sitting at a hot temperature without boiling. The hot temperature converts the SMN into DMS. Okay. DMS. And but you're not boiling it to drive it back off again.
Right. Okay.
So if you can chill it down almost immediately down below 140, you're not converting the SMN into DMS.
Well, and that's one reason I love the immersion Whirlpool chiller, because it drops below 140 within a minute.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's why one of the reasons I stopped using counterflow, because the bulk of your wort sits there, at 210 degrees most of the time, 208.
While the rest is passing through.
Yeah, and so I've noticed a reduction in that in the Pilsners, and the last Munich Helles I made, I tell you, it was really good.
But you didn't bring any.
I didn't have a clean keg, so Justin's going to help me out and clean out this keg I brought
Yes,
today.
sir. It'll be ready by tomorrow. All right, here's the thing, guys. We're working on 8 o'clock.
Wow.
We got a lot to get to. I'm going to leave it up to you. If you're okay, we'll keep going. If not, we're going to move. But we got two things. I got a handful of questions in my hand still, and we got a couple of really good segments I like that Doc brought that could help us out. But either one we got to get through quickly. You guys want to just keep it moving and move to Doc segments, or?
I think what we should do is call this show done.
Okay.
And now we're starting the next show. And,
and we'll just
we'll do another 3 hours.
Yeah,
easily.
Consider it 2
we
weeks.
Didn't even get
from
into
now.
nutrients and stuff.
No, we didn't even. Although I do have a question here. Since you mentioned that, I'll just a quick question. What do you suggest is the best yeast nutrient to use?
Well, I use Cervomyces every time for the past 2 or 3 years. If you're doing a high gravity beer, Fermade K for high gravity in small metered amounts throughout the process can be good.
And now Cervomyces goes in the boil, while Fermade K goes in
the fermenter
after
and how much
couple
per
of days.
5 gallons.
That's like a gram per.
That's gram per gallon.
Gallon, but you can split it up over.
For wine, it's 10 grams per gallon.
Yeah.
For like 8 gallons a must.
Yeah.
So for beer, I would do the same. You can't really overpitch it. So.
Oh, you can.
Really? It's got.
You can taste that stuff though.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I used it in the bottle.
But Fermate K is good. Most of the nutrients. People use Y-yeast has a nutrient that's good. I think beverage people out in Santa Rosa, they produce a nutrient. Most of the nutrients that B3 sells, it's all good.
You do have several to choose from. Yeah, it's a
it's called Beverage People.
Yeah, it's a homebrew shop.
It's a great name,
Byron Birch.
Yeah, it's
been around a long,
It's a homebrew
long
shop
time.
in Marin.
Guy makes incredible meads.
I wish that was the name of one of our shows. All of a sudden, that's just a great name, Beverage People.
There we go. That's okay. We can call it that.
That's
the thing about using a dead yeast as part of your nutrient is that you get the lipids and all that as well. And then there's diammonium phosphate. But most of the if you use an all grain wort, or all extract wort versus simple sugars, you're okay.
Let me answer a couple quick questions that I can answer for you. Can listeners send beer to the Jamil Show? Yes, they can. Send them to the same place. I'll make sure he gets them. In the future, if Jamil ends up wanting them sent to him, he'll post it on his own page that will be on the website, and we can work it out.
I think what would be ideal, too, is we'll have the actual style shows up before. So
Oh,
they
yeah.
can, like, if we're doing American Pales, send it in like a week beforehand.
Okay. So answer to that is yes. We will just stay tuned to the Brewing Network. There will be a page up relatively soon that's going to have all the information you need to know about the Jamil Show. Under optimal conditions, what is the peak time on most ales? We talked about it early. The peak time, according to Jamil, is it's done when it's done. Check out your gravities, and if it's not eating stuff anymore and it's stabilized, it's probably done.
You can finish an ale out in 3 days fermentation easy.
Okay.
And then it takes about a day or two. So minimum time is about 4 days for an average ale. But
there's your minimum. But you probably want to
just let it sit for 10 days.
Let it hang.
If you need more beer, brew more often and have them staged.
Yeah. When you swirl the yeast with sterile water, do the dry yeast settle out so that only you decant the live yeast? And we talked about that earlier. Yes, they do separate. Whether or not every bit goes down, I don't know. But they separate, and the good stuff's on the top, and the crap's on the bottom. So,
you'll see a definite line between the two.
Another quick one, if it can be quick, I hope. We talked about using dechlorinated water. How do you dechlorinate water?
You can run it through a carbon block filter or carbon filter, granular filter.
You can boil it too. As long as it's not chloramines, if it's just chlorine that they put into it.
But like Doc says, everybody's using chloramines now.
Everybody's using chloramines now. There's tablets you can use like for your fish, but I would rather run it through.
Yeah, you can use Campton tablets as well, but I would just get yourself a water filter at Home Depot or whatever your home store is, $10, and run through that, and you'd be fine.
I've got pictures of mine that I'll put up for the. I've got a whole
your filter
thing.
Else?
Yeah, it's it'll be on the Gadget Show.
When you say mine, it's a little ambiguous.
It's a Gadget Show.
Is there? I'm just kind of rapid firing here, guys. I know there's no format. Is there anything else to use besides rice holes to unstick a mash that's stuck?
Thinner mash.
The thinner, well, and you can pump back against the flow. So if you've been running your mash out one direction, you can either pump it back up or you can blow on it or whatever.
I push CO2 back through the bottom, and it doesn't really work that great.
Yeah,
you're freaking out, so you're trying anything you can.
Take a spoon or a yardstick and
I've done
cut down through the mash. You leave the bottom inch or two intact, but just cut a bunch of slots through it, and it'll start running.
Okay. All right.
It's freak time when your mash sticks, though.
You want to? We're going to do one or the other. You want to do the judges' cards, or you want to go through building a recipe with Jamil?
I want to build a recipe with Jamil.
Okay. While we're getting ready to do that, 888-401-BEER. We're here with Jamil Zainasheff. We're going to do Stump the Brewer right now because I got two more things to give away, courtesy of Jamil Zainasheff. Brought him in to give away to you. I've got one question here that came through as a regular question that I think has got to be a Stump the Brewer question. It's such a... I'm going to ask it. I'm just looking at this thing going, is this not Stump the Brewer?
I participate in the chat room, and I see those questions coming through. I'm like, oh, thank God they're not asking me these questions. I don't know the answer.
I'll hold on to that just in case. 888-401-BEER. I have two things to give away, so I'll take one caller, and I'll take one chat. You know the way it works. Basically, the first one Daniela hands over to me, as long as it's good, goes through to Stump the Brewer. Okay. Doc had a great idea to come in here and go through building a recipe with Jamil. What does Jamil do when he sits down and thinks about building a recipe?
Yeah, I think it has to do with what do I want, what are my ingredients going to give me, and what am I going to do to make it a well-balanced beer. And I want a little more of this, a little more of that, and why and how much of this I put into it.
Well, I think a good point about what you're saying is balanced beer, because I think all the different kinds of beers in the world that people enjoy. They enjoy them because they have a certain balance to them and a certain character, and being able to achieve that is what makes them great. They're all totally different, but when they're done right, they're magical.
Yeah, it's exactly right. How many times you sucked in a beer and go, that's too sweet. You don't like it because it's not balanced, or somebody put way too much caramel malt into it. It's just like you just chew on it. You want to have a beer that's just perfect all the way through, and a lot of it starts out with the grain bill.
Right.
And most of what we were talking about tonight was the process of fermentation, make sure the yeast is happy and getting that part done right. But let's back it up a little bit and let's get into the grain bill.
So did you guys pick a style?
Yeah, we did.
Okay, what do you got?
Do we want to go with the Schwartz beer, or do we want to go with...
Well, I think the Schwarzbier and the Kolsch, it illustrates two different aspects of the same thing.
We had two to deal with. The Kolsch, because a Kolsch is so simple yet so delicate.
Okay.
And there's things you need to do to get that done. And then a Schwarzbier, it's a dark beer, but there's things you don't want in it that dark beers have.
So let's start with the Kolsch. So,
okay.
You and I want to brew a Kolsch this weekend, and we're saying, okay, well, here's this great commercial example. We really enjoy it, and
right.
That's great. And what's in it? It's got it's got this maltiness, and it's got this a crisp character to it, and it's got this, that, and the other thing. And how do we go about it?
And we've read quite a bit on Kolsch, and it runs the gambit, but pretty much they're all just Pilsner malt, and traditionally some have wheat.
Now, wait a minute, I want to throw in some other grains. Can I throw in some Munich? Throw in some Crystal?
No.
Throw in some roast barley?
You could, but again, it would be just beer. It would not be a Kolsch. It won't give you what you want.
Right.
And your idea of a Kolsch is going to be a very delicate, very light ale. And it's going to be just a hint of fruitiness, but crisp. And if you start throwing in Munich, you start throwing in Crystal, It's going to be a lot darker. It's going to be a lot more sweet. Things you don't want to have in there.
I think even the color of a Kolsch is your first indicator right there about your grain bill,
But isn't
right?
it going to be too simple if we just use Pilsner malt and wheat?
Of course not.
There's no such thing.
No, because
although we tend to think so all the time. It can't be so simple.
Right.
But it is.
Sometimes
it is
simple
that
is
simple.
good.
Yeah.
It's the KISS principle.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
somebody,
I like that.
Somebody recently asked me for my North German Pilsner recipe. I said, well, it's Pilsner malt and hops. And and that's all it is.
I don't know how many times I've gone into John at B3 with like sort of the outline of what I think my recipe is, and I always know that's not what I'm going to come home with. I always ask John, and so many times he tells me what I should actually go, and every time I go, that's it. Because I so overcomplicate it.
Oh, so many homebrewers want to put the kitchen sink in there,
right?
And for some beers it works, but let's and the reason we pick Kolsch, it's an extreme on one end of the beer.
Okay.
You can't get a 3 SRM putting anything in it pretty much but Pilsner and maybe some wheat.
So the character of the Kolsch versus, so we have a Kolsch which is Pilsner malt and maybe 10% wheat. We have a North German Pilsner which is just Pilsner malt, and they're two totally different beers, and a lot of it comes from the process, right?
Right. We're going to want to ferment it at a warmer temperature. We're not going to ferment it at 48. We're going to ferment it, and it says the Kolsch yeast likes 65. It works really good at
62.
62.
Yeah.
It works really good at 62. So don't freak out about pushing it down.
What is the Kolsch yeast?
It's a separate yeast. It's a German ale yeast.
Mm-hmm.
It's a separate yeast from
White Labs, Y Yeast.
Right. It's an ale yeast.
Okay.
So you can ferment it at ale temperatures. And
Okay.
It gives a really nice characteristic.
Crisp, slightly fruity.
Mm-hmm. And you don't want to have a lot of fruity. It's just not what you're looking for. You're looking at just a hint of fruitiness.
Okay.
And the malt background.
And what about mash temp?
You want to have it, I like a lower mash temp.
Yeah.
Low.
Because you want it to ferment out and
I want
be
to
crisp.
ferment out. So I did a 146, 147, because I wanted it to ferment down low. I wanted to have a drier beer.
How does that temperature affect whether it ferments low or not?
It has to do with which enzymes you're favoring,
Okay.
one way or the other. So if you're favoring having a maltier, thicker beer, you want to have a higher mash temp. You want to have a thinner, more dry beer, you want to have it in the lower range.
Yeah.
In the high 40s.
But with that yeast, it won't be so thin either. It'll and it won't dry out quite that much.
Right.
But it'll be crisp, but not cloying.
So you're looking at offsetting your mash temperatures to have a very fermentable grain bill, and the yeast isn't quite as attenuative, so it's not going to dry it down.
So we need Pilsner malt and wheat malt. We'll figure like 10% wheat malt because that's gives it a little body and a little head and adds a nice braidiness.
All right. Here's what I think is happening here between the two of you, is that you both know exactly. You've both brewed a Kolsch, and you know where you're coming from, and you know the style, and John and Doc's read the style.
I've brewed several Kolsch.
Okay, but I got no idea where you guys are starting. I don't know why you say you only need pills and 10% wheat. I don't know why you need 10% wheat.
That's traditional.
Well,
and where did you find that out?
So
that's a traditional
the BJCP style guides.
Yeah.
Again, a good plug for this is they're free.
Yeah.
And you have the collective intelligence of some of the greatest beer judges and brewers in the world contributing to this thing to kind of define what the best examples of the style are and where they range, and they'll give you hints on ingredients, the history, what the character should be hoppy wise or malty wise, things like that. And it's just a fantastic resource for free. Download it, read through that. There's books on Kolsch. Go to Cologne and drink the beers there.
One of the best books that I've read as far as styles is Ray Daniels' book,
Designing
Great Beers.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic.
And that will tell you the history of Kolsch, what goes into a Kolsch, and the range of what happens with Kolsch. And some are all Pilsner, some have more wheat, some have less.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And kind of what even the range of what won for the AHA.
But again, you look through the descriptions, you drink some samples and, talk to other brewers. And then you see it's a really light color beer.
Yeah.
I'm not going to throw a lot of other roasted grains or caramel grains in it. That's what I was getting to earlier.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, well, what kind of beer are you trying to make? And this is one of the reasons to understand the styles and to try and brew beers to style, because then you're going to learn when you go off saying, yeah, I want this, super caramelly, light colored, this, hoppy beer. You know how to make that happen. Regardless if anybody else is brewing it, that's fine.
Right.
You brew what you like, but you'll understand how to go about doing it.
That's a great point, actually. Just because then you can go off the wall. You don't have to care, but if you got to know how to do it. If you're thinking about it, you got to know how to make that happen.
Well, and part of it for me has always been researching what makes this a Kolsch, what makes this a pale ale, what makes this, and I look at a lot of different recipes. And I kind of formulate, what happens in most of them, what's going on with most of them, what gets me there.
Yeah, I've just been concerned with what makes this bad so far with my beers, so I haven't gotten there.
Well, Kolsch is tough to brew. It's a light beer. It hides nothing.
Yeah.
Well, how about making our Kolsch with 12% alcohol?
Well, that's not going to cut it either, because the high alcohol content is going to give us a whole flavor profile we don't want.
Okay.
And more esters.
And it's going to stress the yeast, which we don't want.
Pause for 1 sec. I think we got to stump the brewer here, then we'll get right back to it. Caller, you're on the air.
Hey, it's Beer Pal.
Hey, good old Beer Pal.
Yeah.
What's happening, buddy?
Just trying to get you guys back on to Stump the Brewer, that's all.
No, that's good. Actually, I'm glad you called too, because one of the prizes we have is for a local only. It's a gift certificate for the Albatross in Berkeley.
Oh, awesome.
So I forgot to mention that because I'm an idiot.
So Matt, how'd your beer turn out today?
A couple of points low on the starting gravity.
Okay.
But I think it's gonna. I mean, it's already percolating away, so the starter kicked off quick, and
cool.
I think it's gonna be all right. Although I think I'm gonna call it my white label amber. And the reason is Dick Fox was pouring the extract into the kettle, and he dropped the jar in.
Nice.
And the little label, the B3 label, came off. It took us about half an hour to get it out of the wort. It was floating around in there. We could not get it out.
Why'd you bother getting it out?
It's extra fiber.
He was drinking when I got there.
That's all grain, really. A little ink.
Yeah. That's flavor. I'm worried about the glue, but well.
You ate paste in kindergarten.
It'll flock out. No big deal.
That's funny. You got a stumper then?
I do.
What do you got?
Oh God, come on, be easy on me.
All right, Jamil. What did I brew today?
White label amber.
Yeah.
Oh, God damn it! I give it away.
You don't even get
that. I don't really have a stumper. I was just joking. I wanted to
give it to him
the
anyways.
guys in the chat room were jonesing for you guys to get back onto the Stump the Brewer, so I thought I better.
I figured that might be the case.
Here I am wasting all your precious phone time. I know there's only one line. Probably everyone else trying to get in.
Oh yeah, everybody.
Yeah, they've been going all night.
We've just been hitting that button, kicking them off.
That's cool. Thanks, Beer Pal.
The guys in the chat room
freaked
out about the Jamil show.
Yeah?
Yeah, I mean, Daniela underplayed it. It was the response was overwhelming.
That's good. Yeah,
so
we're real
looking
excited.
forward to that. It'll be an immediate success.
Oh, I'm wondering if we're going to have any listeners left on Sunday. If people have to bide their family time between Sunday and Monday, I'm wondering what's going to happen.
You better shot yourself in the foot.
That's right. That's okay. We're glad to have more info on the station. So, cool. Thanks, Beer Pal.
All right, guys. Talk to you later.
See you, buddy.
Bye.
All right. Well, I guess he doesn't get the Albatross. Although
we should give it to him. He does a lot for us in the forum, so let's give it to him.
Okay, let's give it to him anyway. So that means I got one Stump the Brewer, and this is the first one to come through anyway, so here you go. And it's going to be for a White Labs certificate for a vial of yeast. It's a free vial of yeast, and like I mentioned earlier, every dollar counts. So this is a goodie right here.
Got to start your starter from something.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, Doc, I don't need to turn you off, right?
Oh, no.
I
moved back away from my microphone.
What two hops are used in nearly all Australian mega beers and are needed if one was to clone an Australian-style beer?
Well, I knew the Pride of Ringwood. The Golden Cluster might have stumped me. I saw the answer on the back of the card. I'm sorry.
That's funny.
Well, he gets it then because Jamil cheated.
Yeah. But I would have answered Pride of Ringwood.
Yeah,
you would have.
That's the one I knew.
That's the only Australian hop I know.
And I didn't know the other one. So
I don't know about you guys, but both the Pride of Ringwood and Golden Cluster
sounds a little gay.
Yeah, neither one of those sounds like a hop to me.
It sounds like something around your private part.
Yeah, Pride of Ringwood.
Yeah, Pride of Ringwood definitely sounds like a sexually transmitted disease, and. Well, for that matter, so does the Golden Cluster.
Not at the other end.
Yeah. All right, whoever that is in the forum, they won.
Well, of course it was Oz, but he's going to donate the shirt to...
It's not a shirt.
Well, see, if I had said Pride of Ringwood, you would have given it to me.
What is it?
I would have, but not if you're going to cheat.
Well, I knew it was Pride of Ringwood.
It's a yeast vial. Yeast vial.
It's a vial of yeast, a free vial of yeast.
Oh, that's cool. So it's going to go to G. Foster. You know him, right, John?
Yeah, Gary.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. We drank his beer today, right?
Didn't he get the shirt? Who got the shirt?
What
was the other guy?
Oh, wait.
No,
the person who called in got the shirt, right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Gary
so Gary didn't receive anything
Gary
yet.
didn't
so
called in.
Cool. No.
He called in.
He did call in.
He had the porter.
But that's not the one who got the shirt, right?
No, that's not the one who got the shirt.
Okay.
Wow. That's like the toughest riddle we've had to solve in weeks.
Shirt. Who had the shirt?
Yeah. Man. All right, then we'll give Beer Pal the certificate to the Albatross anyway. He does do some good work. Since we're doing that, kind of on the same topic, I want to mention real quick because it's been brought to my attention. I had thought about this before, but I received an email about it. Sometimes people are put off by the regulars that are on the show because we definitely have people that hang out with us all the time and people that are regulars in the chat room and people that call in and we talk about them. They're friends of the show and we like that. And, not that people are offended by them, but, I want others of you to know who've never called in and who maybe don't participate actively in the chat room that, it's everybody's participation and everybody just getting as much out of the show as they can that's important to us. So just because we do have regulars and people that call in, we try our best not to favor anybody. I hope it doesn't come across that way as if we're favoring this or favoring that. They just add to the show because they call in, and that's not for everybody. Not everyone wants to be on the air.
It's just familiarity,
and that's all it is. So I'm gonna try a little harder to be aware of how it feels that we've got people that we talk to all the time and that are buddies, and that we've got lots of you out there who don't call in, and you know what, you're just as much a friends to the show as anybody because everybody tuning in really helps us out, especially as we push into January and try to get things paid for a little more around here so that we can bring you more shows. Every single one of you is very important to us, and you're all helping just by tuning in or downloading.
We know you're out there,
and we do know you're out there.
Yeah.
I sit here the entire show and try to monitor what's happening both in the chat as far as people there and our listeners too, so that I can move topics along if you guys start to bail on us or whatnot. And every one of you is important. So I don't want anyone to feel uncomfortable like you can't call in, that it's only our friends or only people who have called in before. Man, you jump right in that chat room. It's a friendly bunch in there.
Well, and call in and you treat them like, they're,
everybody's
king of beers.
That doesn't matter who, call in and you'll be treated exactly the same way.
That's right. So, just real quick, maybe it didn't need to be said. I had seen some posts and emails about it, and I just wanted to make sure everyone knew that you're all welcome here.
And it's cool that we got to answer a lot of questions of the new chat room people today. You really got a bunch of questions of them answered, and I think that's awesome.
Cool.
I want to say Matt offends me.
Yeah. Beer Pal's the only one that works.
But it's not like the familiar guys get their own line in here.
Yeah,
anybody could call.
That's right. There's only one line, and they don't have any special number. It's all 888-401 beers.
And everybody can send me a private message too if it makes it more comfortable for them.
I'm sure they would.
Oh,
that's right. If you don't,
there's number 3.
If you don't want to talk to everybody in the chat room, and that's okay. I mean, like I said, not everybody, especially when you get into tuning into something like this, it's on the internet. Not everyone's like a real internet savvy person before they run across a cool show that they're happy about homebrewing. And so all of a sudden there's chat rooms and streaming audio and you're not so involved in that. And that's me. Like, before I started doing web radio, I was not internet savvy at all. So, I've sort of developed along with it too. And,
Don't worry about the chat room guys either, because guys and gals, because they're really nice too. If you've never been in a chat room before,
yeah,
you're not going to get like a virus or anything, and they're not going to. If you do something stupid, they won't even say anything about it. The only thing I've ever seen anybody comment on is, you picked a color that's hard to read.
Like that. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure I'm getting reamed.
It's funny, like sometimes though, when you log into the chat room, they could have been going on for a half an hour already. When you log in, you don't see any of that. Yeah. So right when you log in, you could end up seeing posts in our chat room that are like, F you, and you're a homo, and screw this, and you're like, whoa, what's happening in here? And all it is
very nice.
You know how homebrewers are. They like to make fun of each other.
And for us on the air, we see none of that.
Yeah, I don't see it. Daniela sees it all. Caller, you're on the air.
What's up, guys? What's up?
Hey, how are you? Buddy?
Hey, I'm pretty good. What the hell with this Jamil show now on Mondays, man? You mean to tell me now that not only do I have to not go to work on Mondays, but now I can't go to work on Tuesdays either because I'm going to be so drunk?
That's what I'm thinking.
I know, that's what we were worried about.
I warned you.
Now I've got to pay my mortgage on 3 days of work a week.
Yeah, good luck with that. I know it, and I'm gonna tell you right now, there's gonna be other stuff unveiled over the next couple of weeks too. So
you're not gonna ever be able to work again.
Yeah, it's gonna be.
Give it up.
Yeah, people are gonna have to figure out how to just listen at work or drink at work, both.
It should be legal,
like you, you're doing right now.
I lost you there for a second.
Right.
Hello.
Yeah, we're here.
You got us?
Okay, yeah. Okay. Yeah, my phone kind of dropped there for a second. I had actually a question for Jamil there.
Go for it.
I remember hearing even just a few weeks ago on this show about the beer dating and the freshness and all that, and then Jamil was talking about how he had a beer that was about 5 years old, and it was great. In his experience, what's the best time for aging ales?
Mm-hmm.
That's a very complex question, and at one point I brewed my very first Scottish 60 ale, which is really low alcohol, low flavor beer. And I tried it, and it was gassy, and it was just horrible. And for some reason I left the keg there for like a year, and I came back, and it had this beautiful head and clean flavor. It was just fantastic. And that taught me that, the popular theory of, ales go quick and lagers you need to leave for a long time. Certain lagers you got to drink quickly before they go bad.
Right.
I think Dan Gordon was saying the same thing. It's like, well, if you leave a beer cold, if you keep it cold and stable, it will last for a long, long time. It will not go bad. And
I'm not necessarily worried about it going bad because it doesn't last.
Well, it's interesting. You gotta let it sit and try little bits here and there. Most beers, I think over the course of 2 years, they really, really start to become something special.
Yeah, see, my favorite are American Pale Ales, and I was kind of just wondering where they peak at.
And that's a kind that needs the fresh hop flavor and the kind of the brassy hop flavor and yeast character and malt character, and those are a quick beer. Those are beers you gotta that's like 2 months, 6 months.
So you can't go 2 years in a pail? It's going to degrade?
You can, but it really just, the caramel gets kind of flabby and the hops drop out, and it's just not that good.
Okay. A lot of it's how you treat your beer. Like Dan was saying, the brew on date is really important to them because it could sit on the palate somewhere.
Right.
Jamil, I don't think he's ever had a beer that he's ever let go above 40.
Right.
I have.
No.
Well, but the thing is, like, I brewed it was like a Munich Helles it was a Bohemian Pilsner, and it went up in competition against the late great George Fix, who I love very dearly, and who knew just tons about brewing, and I won, and I'm just stunned. I mean, it's like my brewing god, and that beer was good that month, and in 6 months it wasn't any good.
Okay.
Bo Pills, this thing about lagers needing to wait a long time. Bo Pills is good for about 6 months. It's one of those odd ones that, certain things like most of the roasted beers with a lot of roasty flavor, those last a long time.
I was doing some reading about the melanoidin beers, how they have a lot of flavor protection stuff in the more caramely, roasty kind of beers.
Right,
but
they will last a lot longer.
Like a pale beer with just caramel doesn't do very well.
Yeah, so the stouts and the browns and stuff like that, go ahead and age them off for quite a long time, and
try them every once in a while.
And,
you'll tell when it peaks. You'll be able to tell when it peaks and when it starts going down. Keep notes.
And on top of it, you got
the only problem is I sample too often. So
yeah, that's what I'm thinking. You got to put away a case, right? If you're going to keep trying it.
Yeah.
And you got to treat them nice. You can't let them go up and down. You can't leave them in the garage warm. You got to
put them at a stable temperature is most important. And then if that stable temperature could be below 40, they'll last for years.
Yeah, that's a stable temperature right there. 98 degrees.
right in your mouth, isn't it?
So I'm keeping my beer temperature.
0.6.
98.6. All right, fair enough.
Well, thanks a lot, guys.
All right, see you, Crotch.
Hey.
All right, we're going to get out of here. That's it, huh? You guys are spent. Don't worry. Fear not, even though there's more questions and more things to get to. Jamil's coming in January. It's not too far away. All the details will be posted on thebrewingnetwork.com. There will be his own page. Plus, you can be sure I'm going to be putting a blurb up on the front page, and we'll keep you up to date. It's still being developed, but as Jamil told you earlier, what these two are going to do, Jamil and John, is go through a different beer style each week and talk about it from A to Z and get you guys to really know the ingredients and what they do. And they'll be taking callers just like this one, and podcasts, archives, the whole bit. So we'll keep you up to date on thebrewingnetwork.com, and we're real excited to have you doing that for us, Jamil. That's awesome.
Great. And I'll get on the forums and I'll answer the questions that didn't get answered.
Okay. Cool.
I know there was a list of them and all.
Can I post some for you too?
No.
I
can't type that much. You ask the more complex questions.
Just ask him here.
No, but we'll save that for later.
Man, I don't know how these other shows only go for like an hour.
It's not good.
I mean, what would we have done in an hour? Nothing. We would have just gotten done tasting our first batch of beer in an hour,
Well, I remember when we started this gig, it was like 2 hours, that's max, 2 hours.
Yeah, and I was frantically planning for content at that point. And now I'm like, if there's no like set plans for the week, I'm like, don't worry about it, man.
Yeah. We're okay.
We might finish on time. If I don't plan a thing, we might finish on time. It's about the worst that would happen. So, thanks for hanging out. We got some talking to do about that show tonight, and, like I said, we'll keep you posted. Real excited about that. John is too.
I am. I'm stoked.
It's gonna be good.
Good year.
And stay tuned for other things too. We're going to unveil some of our other surprises. We got some good tricks up our sleeve. John's been hard at work on some of that, and you guys are going to be happy. You're going to be real happy with the Brewing Network in January of 2006.
Yes.
You too, Doc. But
Cool.
you're always happy.
Yeah, I'm happy.
Daniela?
No show next week.
Thank you. There is no show next week.
Say it happier.
Dr. Scott, good night.
What do you mean by that?
I am sorry to say that. Check the events page. There is no show next week. It is our Thanksgiving weekend. By our, I mean people that live in the United States. Although we're leaving the United States.
Thankfully, happily, we're leaving the United States.
Yeah, we're out of here for a week, and I'm sorry about that. I hate to miss a show. It's only the second show we've ever missed.
Since June.
June
5th.
So I don't feel too bad, but I am sorry. We'll miss it. There will be no show in its place. There's not going to be any special show or anything like that because our automation software is not working properly, so I can't set it to play. So there's nothing. What I'll probably do is I'm going to put all the archives in rotation, sort of randomly. So pretty much if you tune in any time after Wednesday, you're just going to get random archives playing on the thing. Cool. So at least we'll have something going. Won't be here next week. The week after that, though, we've got our first East Coast brewery via telephone.
Kind of East Coast, I guess.
Pennsylvania. No?
From Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Oh, Wisconsin.
Titletown Brewing Company.
My fault. Titletown Brewing Company. Eric Watson. Eric Watson from Titletown Brewing Company. He's going to call in probably just after we do our tasting at 6 o'clock, or we'll have him on for that something, and we'll do this. He'll be on the air from 6 to 7 with us next week. So our first out of California phone-in interview.
Yeah,
that's cool.
That'll be fun.
And that's going to lead us up to Charlie Papazian doing the same thing the week after.
His new book is coming out too. So Microbrewed Adventures.
That's right. If you don't know Charlie Papazian, check out...
Charlie's a great guy.
He is good. Known as the godfather of homebrewing. Although I think Jamil's quickly...
He's the second son.
Yeah, he doesn't have as many publications quite yet.
He's the new godfather.
You got some time left, Jamil. I got faith in
Charlie's
you, buddy.
Charlie's a great guy. He's still a homebrewer at heart.
Yeah, that's cool, actually. Wasn't he? In fact, he's going to send us some of his homebrew for that
beer
show.
samples to try.
I tell you,
and we're going to critique it too.
Guy.
That's cool. In fact,
That's awesome.
We've only had one brewer in here who's sort of gone pro that's brought us their homebrew also. That was John Dunahauer last week.
Porter.
He brought us his homebrewed porter.
That was nice. That was a big growler.
Yeah, it was good.
Nice.
Yeah, it was real good.
Best beer they make. It's homebrew.
Best beer they don't make.
Yeah, it's true. Right on. Good show.
So, yeah, good time. Jamil, thanks for coming in, and lots more of you to come.
Thanks for having me.
Part 4 next year, 2006.
That's right. All right, everybody. Have a good night.
Good night.
I'm glad that you stuck around with us, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. 2 weeks' time. Sorry about the break. 2 weeks.
Week 25 we are on right now.
Ooh.
You like that?
Thanks, everybody.
Coming in January, the Brewing Network is proud to present the Beer Style Show. Hosted by the most award-winning homebrewer ever, Jamil Zainasheff. Each show will give you the best in understanding BJCP style guidelines.
You got to honestly look at it, try it, and evaluate it, and say, no, it's actually, a better beer in this style. And that's, again, goes to, understand the BJCP style guide.
Competition advice.
One of the things in competition that you have to do is you have to brew a good beer, a really good beer. So the bigger the competition, the better beer you have to brew as a base.
Experienced homebrew tips.
One of the things about process, a lot of these beers, mash temp is a difference of just a few degrees one way or another, but it makes, a dramatically different beer.
The science behind the process.
What you want to pitch is 1 million cells per milliliter of wort per degree Plato.
And brewcaster John co-hosting is sure to keep Jamil on his toes.
Because I believe that you need temperatures to help grow you.
I think John, you could make even better beer.
What's on, Jamil?
The Beer Style Show with Jamil Zainasheff and John Plisse. Coming to the Brewing Network in 2006. Stay tuned to www.thebrewingnetwork.com for details.
Pale ale is a friend of mine, and I sure like good barley wine. Chocolate porter, cherry stout, don't you know what I am talking about? Don't you give me that American crude, boys, I want a real homebrew. Homebrew, don't you really love it? Homebrew, can't get enough of it. Homebrew, it blows my mind. I love homebrew all the time. Yeah, I think I have me, well, I have me one right now. Should know how to get down. Double and triple on my best friend. I think I'll have them all over again. But don't you give me that American crude. Boys, I want a real homebrew. Homebrew, don't you really love that homebrew? Can't get enough of it. Homebrew, it blows my mind. I love homebrew all of the time. Yeah, I think I'll have me, well, I'll have me one right now. me a wheat beer on a hot summer day. A bark will do me when the skies are gray. I'll take a Belgian brew anytime, and the women sing and lambic fine. But don't you give me that American crude, boys, I want a real home brew. Home brew, don't you really love it that a home brew? Can't get enough of it. Home brew, it blows my mind. I love home brew all the time. Yeah, I think I'll have me, well, I'm the one right now. Cherry stout, yeah, you know what I am talking about. But don't you give me that American crude, boys, I want a real home brew. Home brew, don't you really love it, that home brew? Can't get enough of it. Home brew, it blows my